Nets. I told him not to come. I think he's had enough of a chance over the years to hear what I have to say, but I hope that if I'm being mevatel anybody from learning, that bitula zuhi kiyuma, that being mevatel, sometimes you have to be mevatel a little bit in order to be mekayim. And I've reached a stage in life where I don't have my rabbeim anymore to ask. But for those who were here last time we spoke, I answered the hard questions. And tonight we're going to give the Olam an opportunity to ask a lot of questions. But I want to begin because I'm sure there's a lot of new faces. So I'd like to begin as I did last week, and it's my practice on my radio program, which can also be heard for those who have a heter for the internet. It's called The Fear, F-E-A-R, Kashes, K-A-S-H-E-S, K-A-S-H-E-S. The Fear Kashes is the name of the radio program. It's thefearkashes.com. A lot of it is videoed, many archived programs. And the theme is the fear kashas, F-E-A-R, are the kashas that people are afraid to ask and afraid to answer. We ask them and answer them according to the hashkaf of the Gedolim Torah of yesteryear, where there was no spin and everything was very straight as it appeared to be. So our practice is to begin with the Devar Torah, and the Devar Torah is very much connected to what we're going to speak about in Yitzhak Hashem, what I'm going to speak about, and we're going to discuss this evening. The pasuk says, "Arata banecha tzion al banecha yavan." I evoked or aroused your son's tzion against your son's yavan. I might have touched upon this last week, but we're going to give additional information in terms of the Dvar Torah. The question is obvious. Banecha yavan, the ones who said kol hanisis teboil laheg ben tchila, this is Banecha Yavan. Why are they called Banecha Yavan? And we mentioned, I think I mentioned last time, at my age I forget what I said last time, what I didn't say, so there might be a little bit of repetition, but we'll try to add some spice. What does it mean, Banecha Yavan? So the Radziner said, and it seems I was told that Rav Yaakov Kamenetsky said, and I'm sure others have said it as well, that the reason it's called Banecha Yavan is because it's not talking about the Yavanim. It's talking about Banecha who act like Yavanim. So in other words, the yesod is that many of us have grown up an entire lifetime and thought that Hanukkah is a story about the Greeks or the Syrian Greeks in the Mulchamas against the Frum Jews, the Orthodox Jews. And that's a bit of a mistake. The real essence of Hanukkah is what's called solo voce, below below the surface. There's two games going on at the same time. The manifest game is the Syrian Greeks and the Jews. But the real, and that is called a revolutionary war. But from the very history of Hanukkah, where according to some, and I think it might be in the English art school of Hanukkah, that the Gezer of Cholanissis to Boila Hegman Tchila was taking place for 3 years, and it could very well be that when Hanukkah, the celebration started, there was still in effect for a certain amount of months or a year or so, so how could it be? And for sure there were another 20 to 25 years of war or more going on. So how could it be? Who in the world makes an 8-day celebration l'doros if the whole thing is about a conflict, a war, and the war is still going on for the better part of 30 years? And it's a historic fact that as soon as they declared, as soon as they actually had for a very short time a Jewish commonwealth, and the Syrian Greeks had been so-called driven out of Eretz Yisrael, they were only driven out because one of the sides at some point brought in the Romans. So it immediately began the Roman Golis, the Golis of Edom. So what's the whole celebration? Which lends credence to the concept that the real Hanukkah celebration is Jew versus Jew, Yehudim versus Misyavnim, Jews versus Hellenists, those who aped the secular society. So Orarta Banecha Tzion Al Banecha Yavon is the pasuk in Daniel, is prognosticating and conceptualizing, defining what Hanukkah is really about, the unterste Shura, the bottom line. The bottom line is Hanukkah is a civil war between Jew and Jew. So in Cain, why is it communicated with us? Why is it that many of us go through life not knowing this? And I would suggest that this relates to the pasuk V'chamushim olu b'nei Yisrael miMitzrayim. We know the Chazal tell us that many people died during the Makas Choshech, many Jews. It might be even that 1 out of 50 went out, Chamushim. That's the most extreme number. So what's going on here? The Sfarim explain that HaKadosh Baruch Hu did not want to embarrass the Jewish people by declaring to the Umas HaOlam how many of them were left out of the Geula. So therefore it was done under cover of darkness. But Lamaisa, a lot of the Jews didn't make it. We know that there's a yesod that all aspects of the Golus, of all the Golusin, the future Golusin, were all present in some form in Mitzrayim. That's why when we say in the Haggadah every year, we say certain words and then we say Zu Hadchak. So I explained that that means that the shoirish, perhaps, of putting Jews in cattle cars in Golus Edom and packing them together has its shoirish in Golus Mitzrayim in Zu Hadchak. Similarly, v'choshech al pnei sahaim choshech zu yavan shehechshichu eineihem sel Yisrael. But similarly, that might relate, homiletically speaking, al pidrush to Hanukkah, that part of the finsternis, the choshech, is that we don't make it manifest to everybody, even our own people, that Hanukkah was really about Jew versus Jew. Because Hanukkah is the final frontier. It's the last holiday. You have to tie up all the knots in Hanukkah. We're about to get to the Hakra Boys. Just a drop of patience, you'll see how this connects. Hanukkah is the last estancia, it's the last stop. As the Gemara in Megillah says, Esther Soif Kol Hanisim, frek the Gemara, V'hoika Hanukkah. This Hanukkah. So the Gemara is Nitl L'Kosev. Esther, Megillah's Esther, the revelation for Esther. I'm saying this homiletically. Esther was revealed exactly what happened in the writing of Megillah's Esther. We all have what happened. But Hanukkah remains without a Megillah. It's underground what's really happening. But what has to happen in Hanukkah is all the loose knots in history have to be tied up. And the last remaining knot is the fact that you can take the Jew out of Golus, but you can't take the Golus out of the Jew. So that means the Jew adapts to the Golus mentality, whether it's the music, whether it's the food, whether it's the arayas, whatever the hanhoga is. And that has to be purged, and that's what Hanukkah is all about. And Hanukkah is a unique type of a thing. Because Hanukkah, somebody told me, in the last few days, I told over some of my Divrei Torah to a Talmud Chacham, a big Talmud Chacham, and he told me that the Gra says that the Hanukkah situation, the Esav situation, it continues to seesaw back and forth. And it goes back to the original, when it seesaws, in other words, when Esav is on the ascendancy, so then it goes all the way back to the original brachas of Yaakov and Esav. And so it goes back and forth and back and forth. And similarly, Hanukkah gave us a test, a taste of the ability of Jews, of a certain amount of cadre of Jews, to purge themselves completely of the Yevonic Hellenistic influence. And that's the celebration of Hanukkah. And I suggest also, I'll be Jewish, what kind of a name is Chanukah? Why Chanukah? They say Chanukah, hey, Yashikayach, very nice, but it doesn't seem to speak about the essence of Chanukah. But the answer is it does. Because Chanukah, hey, means that for a short time, even in the middle of our struggles with all the vicissitudes of life and the enemy of the Syrian Greeks and our own enemies, the Misyavnim, if we manage to have a little respite, we manage to get back just a little bit of the service to the Yerushalaim represented by the service to the Beis Hamikdash. Even if the Syrian Greeks are garrisoned just down the hill or down the block from the Beis Hamikdash, which historically they were at the time of the celebration of Hanukkah, even if Kolonistis to Boil Hegman, if I'm correct in what I seem to remember, that it was still in effect, we still have a Hanukkah because we have the ability to a certain extent to serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu and to purge ourselves of the Chazarai. So listen, Oirarta Bonecha Tzion al Bonecha Yavon. What's the difference between Tzion and Yavon? Rav Matisyahu Glazerson wrote about this around 35 years ago. Tzion, and based on Sfarim, the Bnei Yissaschar in particular, Tzion is Yavon with a Tzadi. What does the Tzadi represent? Tzadik Yisoid Oilam. It represents in areas of Arayos, of Yisoid. Tzion represents the Tzadik. Tzion is exactly the same, 150-60, exactly the same as Yosef. Yosef is Yisoid. Chanukah was Chodesh Shabbos Milah. It was against Milah. It was similar to Amalek, who was Zorka Klipat Milah Klape Maila. It's the same kind of thing. There's no question, with this we'll get right into it, there's no question, I mentioned this last week. There is absolutely no question. People are going to smile, they're going to think it's cute and it's funny, and that we're preoccupied with these issues. But Tzion is, Chanukah is the defeat by Erlich Yidden, at least temporarily, the defeat of the homosexual Mishkav Zocha agenda. Who says this? Levin, you're nuts. Well, I'll tell you who says it. Who says this in the Sefer of Rav Moshe Shapiro, the famous Rav Moshe Shapiro. It's in the Sefer of Rabbi Stolper, who wrote on Chanukah. You could even read it in English. I happen to come to that conclusion without that. But it's very important because that's why we're having, in part, this discussion now in Yerushalaim HaKodesh. It happens to be that this is an ongoing struggle. Milchamas Hashem ba'Amalek midar dar. Rashi says Amalek is Loshen Mikveh Keri Mishkav Zocha. I once met Rav Don. I davened with him, Rav Don Segel. I davened with him in Gush, I think it's called Gush Monim, where he davens. And he was with his tefillin. I walked him back home. I know him for a very, very long time, since he came to America the first time, which was like 31, 32 years ago. He broke his code of silence during Elul because I got married Ches Elul, and I wanted to Chashan Shmuz Boy B'Yoyim. And he spoke to me. I was mishamish him to a certain extent, but this was much more recent. The last 3, 4, 5 years, I told Rav Don Azavart. He couldn't talk. He was wearing his tefillin. I told him as follows: I said, in Eretz Yisrael, everything is sandwiching. You go fleishiks, milchiks, wherever it is, it's sandwiching. They stuff all kinds of stuff and they put it in a baguette, and that's it's a sandwich. I said, Amalek is also a sandwich. On one hand, it's Mishkav Zocha. That's inside. That's the essence of Amalek. They homosexually raped Klal Yisrael, and then they threw the Milah Klape Maila. They said, oh, Kadosh Baruch Hu, you want Kedushas HaMilah? Here, take it. This is a fact, based on the Chazal. What is the sandwich? On the one hand, when a person finally realizes that the Mishkav Zocha agenda is Mamish Amalek, Milchamas Hashem Amalek Midar Dar, it's also Yavan, it's the Syrian Greeks. If you just knock into your computer pedophile or Greek and homosexual and gymnasia, you'll see it all, it's all out there. And that's what the Sefer HaMaccabiyim means when it says Torah Yisayim. So besides for that, being the meat of the sandwich, the essence, but when a person finally realizes he's confronting it, like today, agudah Yisrael l'mashal, Klal Yisrael, Hamoidia, Yated Ne'eman, Jewish Press, Mishpacha magazine. Oh, it's a mikra. It's a mikra. It just happens to be that now society is crazy, this and that's a mikra. In other words, they don't connect it, it's Amalek. It's much easier to say it's a mikra, it's a happenstance. This is what society's at now, it's this, it's that. It's nothing to do, this is Amalek. That's one piece of the bread, of the sandwich. And the other thing is, even when you show them You take their nose and you bang it into the Chumash and you bang it into the sources. You say, do you know this is what's going on? This is the last step before the destruction of Sodom. It's the last step before the Koisuk Subul Azach is the last step before, it says in Chazal, before the destruction of the flood of Noah. They'll say, Krirus, Kaltkeit. Doesn't this, it's not our business, it doesn't affect the Jews, and this and that. P.S. It doesn't affect the Jews. Right here, for the last 10 years or more in Yerushalaim HaKodesh, there is a cell phone number connected with an institution called Bayit HaPatuach, the Open House, which is the homosexual epicenter here in Yerushalaim HaKodesh. The Bayit HaPatuach that for years has Kabbalah Shabbos, for years it has celebrations of Hanukkah and Purim and all kinds of stuff. But there's a machteret, an underground, a homosexual Haredi Dati underground right here in Yerushalaim, where you pick up a cell phone and you call the number, and if they see that the person's really a Mishkav Zoch, and if they hear certain questions, they take them into an underground where there's mamish a chevra of this stuff. Now, I think I mentioned this last week. This is something that I discussed with Efrati several years ago, when he was with his Rebbe Rav Eliyashiv by Rav Ezriel Orbach's house. Yeah, I didn't know this, and that. He promised me a meeting, and then the last minute there was no meeting, no nothing. Let me explain something. Some people who were here at my first Terosha gave some feedback to some of my children and my friends, and they said, you were very intense. You were almost intimidating. You were like... And people were afraid to ask questions, and people were a little taken aback. How could you be so passionate? Well, you're overdoing it. So maybe I am, but let me tell you a story. It was 1985, which is 25 years ago. Many people in this room were not born yet. I was 31 years old, and I was running for mayor of New York. Not to win, but on the Right to Life, on a small party. The Right to Life line against Mayor Ed Koch, the quintessential Jewish politician in New York, hand-me-down. It was 1985. Actually, it was right after the election, and it was early 1986. The year that Moshe was niftal in Misparim. 3 years before that, I had gotten a letter from Moshe, which I showed last week, and the letter basically said that it as Chov Kodesh Mutal al Kol Echad Ve'echad L'Malis Es Ha'ulam Shel HaCity Hall Kol Yemei HaHearing Shel HaGay Rights Laharois Golui She'am Hashem Soinei Toyeva. I'm sure everybody understands what that means. Rav Moshe wrote a remarkable letter, L'Soif Yom of Tavshin Mem Gimel. At my request, I utilized as the requesters the late great Debretziner of the Linzer who was the Mechutn of the last closing Rebbe, and it's just nifted within the last year or so, and Rabbbi Avigdor Miller. They signed the letter to Moshe, and even though Rabbi Tendler and other political types, Mordechai Tendler, were interfering with the extent of what Rav Moshe answered, we gave him 4 whole columns of a letter. And Rav Moshe only answered on the gay rights legislation, and only because I pushed Rabbi Mordechai Tendler, I said, I gave this to you Sukkot time, where's the answer? This is now on the agenda in City Hall. But even with all of that diminution, with all the diminishing that was coming from the political end, from Rabbi Mordechai Tendler, who was in touch with a person named Jacobs from the east side, who is a big knacker, and I think has to do with Hatzalah. Jacobs, who worked for a pro-homosexual politician who had once gone to Yeshiva, who was then the comptroller of New York, Harrison J. Golden. Harrison J. Golden, who was the first one to write a tourist booklet of all the Mishkav Zacha places in New York for internationally, for all the shmutz that should come here. When Harrison Golden was handed this letter I just referred to you, he was handed the letter in City Hall by an associate of mine as he was about to go up to speak in favor of the bill. Harrison Golden, he says, ooh, a starker brief. You understand, he's making chayzik, a novel. Understand now. His Jew boy, his ortho Jewish Politico, Jacobs, was on the phone, I was told, it's alleged, with Mordechai Tendler the night before to figure out what the Zeder of Moshe was going to write about. That's what I was told. That's what I heard me'achorei pargid. That's how rough it is outside. That's what I mean by Amalek is a sandwich. It's mikra and it's keri, and it's mikra and it's krius, the kalkite. Rabbi Say, why am I passionate? So, shortly after this election, where I got like 1.5% of the vote, it was a macha against Koch, and it was a powerful macha. They wrote about it. I got the headlines in the Daily News and the Post, and the only mayoral debate sponsored by the New York Times. And in the New York Times, I framed a picture. That means I did something that I knew they would take a picture of. And what I did was, I took a homosexual book list in the kids section of the Borough Park, Brooklyn Library called Gay and Proud, which I had given to the Debreceni Rav upon his request when I showed it to him. He wanted a copy to speak about it in his shul on Shabbos Tshuva. Not like the politically correct Rabbanim today who don't speak. The kids. Debreceni Rav didn't think so. He thought they're making Kalya the kids, and he's got to protect the kids. So I took the list, and there were 4 candidates for mayor. I was sitting at the edge. Then there was Diane McGrath, the conservative Republican. And then there was Diane Bellamy, the liberal. And then there was Ed Koch, who was the incumbent mayor and the Democrat. I took this and I said, what kind of a business is this? That in your city, they're giving this stuff out in the libraries and poisoning our children. Shame on you. And I took it and I tossed it at him, knowing that the New York Times would take a picture. And sure enough, that picture appeared in the New York Times, Rabbi Levin throwing this homosexual book list at this. At Koch complained. Kiddush Hashem number 1. Kiddush Hashem number 2, it says as follows. Rabbi Levin leaned back to establish eye contact with Mayor Koch and said, shame on you. In the Orthodox Jewish community, you're a step away from excommunication. You're running New York City like a giant Greenwich Village singles bar. You have no idea what it takes to raise children in this environment and in this city. And Koch said, he talks like Frank Perdue. He talks like a chicken. Rabbi, I would assume everybody wants people to go to synagogues, even the sinners. I said, yes, but we don't make a synagogue. I started up with him about going to something called Congregation Beit Simchat Torah in Greenwich Village, the first homosexual synagogue. So he said it. So I said to him, we don't establish synagogues for millennia called the synagogue of the adulterers or the synagogue of the pedophiles. We just don't do it. So that's not what it means. And we don't put on billboards, Mr. Mayor, our shortcomings and things that should be kept private. We don't put it on the billboards. He was burning angry because nobody ever spoke. He was a big arrogant person. Nobody ever spoke to him with such chutzpah. He was really upset. And I got the headlines in, for that mayoral debate, which was what we were trying to do, was tremendous Kiddush Hashem. The night of the election, I'm laying in bed. But I mean, what am I doing? I'm laying in bed, 10 o'clock, 10:30, I have a transistor radio, and I'm hearing WCBS radio, and they're reporting as follows. Diane McGrath, the conservative Republican, called up to, congratulate the mayor and to acknowledge defeat. Carol Bellamy did. The same. But the rabbi who said to the mayor, you're running New York City like a giant Greenwich Village singles bar, he did not call up and concede defeat. In other words, she, the reporter, you have to have an ear for this. Sometimes the reporters are really with you. So they're zinging it, like, what are you mentioning it for? Okay. By the way, Rabbi Say, people used to say to me for the last couple of years, listen, you're talking about ancient history, what you did in 85 and this and that, what did you do yesterday? So I just want to hold this up to you to show you what I did yesterday. This is what I did yesterday. This is the New York Times. I wouldn't even have this. This is a letter that came to my brother's house 3 days ago. That my brother Shviga sent this from Detroit. That's how I happen to have it. She sent it to show her kids. They finished looking at it. I happen to have it. So it's Midrash Shamayim. I should be able to show it to you. This is the article in the New York Times. From Palladino and Rabbi, a melding of agendas. Look at the size of the picture. The article continues into here. Nice long article. This was on Wednesday, something like October the 13th or 14th. The very next day I was already saying Tzeiskom B'Sholem to Palladino because he wasn't strictly, he started to apologize to the Mishkevei Zach. When he apologized to them, I had to go out. This is the article. I went in front of a church. St. Patrick's Cathedral, the most prominent Catholic church. He's a Catholic. I called upon the Archbishop to You know, I said, everybody knows where the Orthodox Jews stand now on this. We made it perfectly clear. It's been international. We called on the Archbishop to do the same, and this is Rabbi breaks his Palestinian of apology for remarks on gays. Rabbi say, this didn't just go in the New York Times. Tell me the last Jewish organization or individual you know who got back-to-back coverage, day after day, 2 days in the New York Times. My coverage started Sunday night, Monday night, Tuesday night, Wednesday night, Thursday night. After this came out in the New York Times, they were picking me up in Brooklyn by a fancy car service and driving me to Rockefeller Center to be debating on the Ed Show, to debate with the host. For those who have a heter for this continued, came out a full week. I got emails from Malaysia and Guyana, just one from each, saying, thank you very much, Rabbi, for standing up for godly values from Gentiles. This was a signal from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Ad Hechen Devar Magin. It went to India, Reuters in India, Australia, The Guardian, London, etc. Let me get back to 1986. By the way, if you have a heter for the internet, and I can discuss that later, what I mean by that, you can go to RabbiLevin.com and see all this stuff on video. You can go to my YouTube channel, God Reign, R-E-I-G-N, over us, and see a lot of hashkafa and stuff on the YouTube channel. My speeches in Washington in front of 100,000 people live each and every year. You can see many other things there. If you go to God Reign over us, my website, you can see a fascinating slideshow that demonstrates conclusively, and I never talked about it for close to 25 years. I didn't talk about it. Demonstrate conclusively that in around 1987, there was a huge drought, and I went down to Columbia, South Carolina. I remember like today, it was in Av. I discussed it with Rabbbi Avigdor Miller. I told him there's a big drought. I told him that I'm hearing on talk radio late at nights that people are starting to say it's the Jews bankers who are foreclosing on the farmers in the South who can't pay their bills because of the drought. I saw a letter to the editor like that in the Daily News in New York. I said, it's anti-Semitism. I went to Rabbi Avigdor Miller. He said, what do you propose to do? I said, I would like to go down myself, take a tallis, stand on the steps of the state capitol in Columbia, South Carolina, and do a prayer for rain, blow a shofar, and show them, Ima Anechi B'tzara, that we Orthodox Jews here, we come across half the way of the country, and to try to counteract this concept that Jewish bankers, that what they're trying to do, the anti-Semitism. He went, he took money from the Casa of Jews from morality, he gave it to me, I flew down. That was on a Thursday, I did this thing. By Saturday, Shabbos, Saturday, the New York Post had just a picture of me with a tallis and a shofar, which is on that slideshow, saying he's hoping to blow up a storm. But wait, all across the South, they showed the rabbi in a very great light on TV and everything else. It was a tremendous Kiddush Hashem, but let me tell you the end of the story. The end of the story is that Monday, the same newspaper that on Friday was reporting about me and saying that there was a drought, Monday they declared the drought was over in 11 states, and I give you the from the meteorology, I forget how you pronounce it, from the weather people, I show you exactly the inches and what happened, etc. It's a fascinating thing. I never discussed it because I'm not Pat Robertson, the evangelical guy who said he prevented a storm from coming to Virginia Beach and everything else. Just over the years, etc. Around 4 years ago, something like that, or 3 years or 4 years ago, I forget when, there was a drought in Atlanta. My Rebbe was no longer here, but I decided, my Rav, that it would be appropriate to go down there and to try to do the same thing and give a drasha, which I did, saying that, listen, it's totally in morality a lot. That means the physical things, the natural disasters that happen, a lot of them have to do with morality, with arayas, etc. And it's based on Chazal. Do you know that there's a Yerushalaim, a Beferish Yerushalmi in Brachas, that says that earthquakes are caused by Mishkav Zohar? It's Beferish Yerushalmi. Parenthetically, and when Haiti had the huge earthquakes, I spoke about it publicly and got a lot of publicity, except that our own Hashkafistin, Rabbi Moshe Grulek, Assalamu alaikum, great Hashkafist from Rishkafa, he wrote a whole 2 pages. And he was, but God forbid, he doesn't, he even quotes the Pasuk in Tillim, Vatigosh ha'aretz v'tirod, or v'tirod ha'aretz v'tigosh, that speaks about this. But God forbid, he doesn't mention the Chazal. And then he says, just like the chief rabbi, Sachs of whatever his name is of England said about the tsunamis. We can't say what God had in mind. We have no idea. This and that. You can't say for sure. You can't say this is the only reason, but you could certainly speculate, and especially if you have sources. So we have Rabbi Moshe Grilek, and I'm sorry to say, Dr. Rabbi Abraham Twersky, who also wrote such a piece, together with Sachs, the chief rabbi of England, and Shmuley Bateach. He also said the same thing. It could be because he happens to have a close relative that's an out homosexual, so we all have to suffer when Shmuley Bateach writes during the same week that I'm making Kiddush Hashem with Palladino, who's running for governor, against the Shmutz. Shmuley Bateach gets into the Wall Street Journal, a paper even more prominent than the New York Times, and he writes an op-ed piece about Mishkav Zacha marriage. I have to say no. But domestic partnerships, civil unions, living together, it's terrible, they should be alone. Mamash apikursis. Did the whole OU or the whole agudah speak out against this one drop? Did Lubavitch, who created the monster, Halaylo, Chag HaGeula, we should go over and ask the Lubavitchers if they have a moment of downtime in the celebration of Chag HaGeula. And I get along very well with Lubavitchers. They come to my shul in Simchas Torah, they dance, they come in Shalach Shudah sometimes. I'm not bashing Lubavitch, just bashing Lubavitch. But I do ask questions. I'm an equal opportunity questioner and abuser. I don't take junk from anybody. And I would like to ask Lubavitch. And I asked this to one of their big intellectuals, Simon Jacobs, and I said, I'm going to debate Boteach on the Alan Combs radio show. But I said, you should be doing it because you created this monster. You made him a shliach, you sent him to Oxford, a highly intelligent fellow. 80 or 90% of the time it's beautiful, but 10% of the time the guys are walking, talking Chil Hashem, and Afro Lepuma, he says, Apikosis, you should be debating him. Well, so much for Lubavitch with their PR. So much for Lubavitch with the PR. P.S., while on the subject of Hanukkah and Lubavitch, little story here. I went many years ago. My kids insisted that I drive, and those were in the days where I still had some control of my family. Kids were a little younger. If they wanted to go to the Lubavitch Simchas Beis, they couldn't just get on the train and go in the middle of the night and be massacring themselves. They had to come up to Dad to drive. So I had to drive them to Simchas Beis. So they showed me there's Rav Leibel Groner, who I think might even be here or something, I guess. We should ask him the question again. He might have forgotten the question and the answer. So I walked over to him. I said, Shalom Aleichem. I'd like to ask you a question. The Rebbe had a mitzvah of Sheva Mitzvahs B'nai Noach. One of the Sheva Mitzvahs B'nai Noach is Arayas. Chanukah is about a celebration of the Jews against the Yevonim who stood for the shmutz of the heterosexual, homosexual sort. Kolonisis to Boil Hegman Tchila. Taken from Esav, who was doing the same thing to Eishes Ish. Taken to the Nochash HaKadmoin, that the Chazal say, the Zoya Hitl Bozuama. I touched it up, that's a Bechina, but the Nochash did the Chava of Kolonisis to Boil Hegman Tchila. And homosexually. Amalek, etc., etc. And they're doing, Yavin is doing Hanukkah. So why are you taking a cherry picker and putting up Jewish politicians to light the candles, or Gentiles to light the shamas? Oich me'achidish, you understand? Gentiles, because they have the chanfa. You understand what I mean? Careerists and tipshus and stupidity? Shame on them. You take a low-life, garbage Gentile person to light the shamas, and he's making chukei teyeva and hapos v'lad and everything that goes against Sheva Mitzvah B'nai Noach. So I said, Rabbi Groner, what's going on? He gets very angry. Often the Rebbe fragt mir nicht kein Frages, he says. You don't ask any questions on the Rebbe. I said, oh yeah? Hashem put it in my head, it's not me. I'm just a drop above average intelligence, but I have big rabbeim, and since I'm the only zhlov doing it, I have some shiyata d'shmaya. So I said to him, Toch kidei dibur. I said, Taka, mefrekt nicht kein Scheiles? Ich hab a befeirische rebeinische Leilam. She'al avicha v'yagetcho zikeinecho v'yemru loch. Zog mir nicht, dass mefrekt nicht kein Frage. Maybe I was massacring my life. They would have started singing a Lubavitcher Russian song and they would have treaded on me like I'm the grapes for the Farbrengen. But Baruch Hashem, it was okay. Baruch Hashem was okay. So we'd like to renew this question to Lubavitch. And more recently, I found myself on the other end of a telephone line from Senator Paul Brownback. Senator Brownback, not Paul, Senator Brownback, of Sam Brownback of Kansas. He called me up personally a few years ago and he asked me to come to Washington, D.C. on the day that they were trying to do something in the Senate against Mishkav Zachar marriage. So what did he want from me? I should stand with him, or it turned out to be with one of his people, at the very door of the Senate dining hall to buttonhole the Jewish senators who are monolithically and unilaterally against any legislation to prevent gay marriage. You hear? The Gentile is asking me, the Jew, I'm just wondering, apparently, why didn't he call up agudah Israel? I had to come all the way from New York. What's his name? He's a very nice fellow, short guy, nice fellow, I forget his name. He's the Abba Cohen. He's there on the spot. Why didn't they ask Abba Cohen? Or Nathan Diamond from the Young Israel? Think about it. Think about what Chilul Hashem is. He has to ask me, what is our membership dollars going for in these organizations? So anyhow, I come down and stand at the door and buttonhole Ron Wyden of Oregon and Frank Lausenberg from New Jersey and a few others. And gentlemen, I have to confess, middle-aged, I forgot the point that I was going to make to you. You'll forgive me, but it was very, very interesting. And maybe it'll come back to me a little further into this discussion. So we'll go back now to 1986, just won the mayoral election. And the question is, what was the story I was going to tell you about? Why I'm so passionate about this? I'm so intense, screaming, scaring people. The mad fag basher. Why? What's pshat? Well, let me tell you a story. Another episode. Again, this was 24 years ago when most people in this room were not even born, and I was already older than the 24. I was already 31, going on 32. Just been 31, just 31 in a few months. The New York Times, by the way, the New York Times was machabed me to write the op-ed piece that year, shortly after I had run for mayor and made that the major issue in the campaign, morality, abortion, and the Mishkav Zachar, to say to the world that Mayor Koch might be the quintessential Jew. He does not represent us. He's a step away from excommunication, etc., etc. So the New York Times hat mir anerkannt, or they recognized me to the extent they asked me to write the op-ed piece opposing the Mishkav Zachar law when it came up that year in the New York City Council, which in itself is a tremendous Kiddush Hashem. And I used the following line. Gentlemen, if you just... Listen to the line I used. I think I got it from a non-Jew. A gewaldige line. I said a moral wrong can never be the basis of a civil right. Again, a moral wrong can never be the basis of a civil right. The gewaldige Kiddush Hashem, again, the New York Times. So listen to what happened. I mean, if you have a little time, guys, I have a lot of stories, very interesting stories. I don't want to bore anybody. Listen to what happened. I had just run for mayor of New York. And I had made this mechah. Meanwhile, a deal had been cut. Did I say this? Is anybody who was here from last time I spoke, if I said this story, please tell me. A deal had been brokered. No, I didn't say. A deal had been brokered in the New York City Council. There was an old guy, an old religious Catholic, Zachar Latayv, Tom Cute. He was in the Sunset Park district adjoining Borough Park. And this old man, he stubbornly held control of the city council and did not allow the General Welfare Committee that had to hear this bill every year. He stacked it so there was always more of a majority of moral people. So the bill never got out for a general vote. Meanwhile, breathing down his neck was a liberal young guy who was 50 or 60 years younger than him, and ran against him, and he narrowly lost to Tom Cute. So Tom Cute decided that instead of losing and having that busha, he was mamish carved to 80, he's going to retire. That guy won. And when that happened, the whole configuration of the city council changed. And a deal was cut that a guy named Peter Valone, a religious Catholic from Astoria, would go to church every day to say tefillas and everything. He was this, and he was a fighter against the schmutz. He became the city council speaker. But there was a deal cut. The deal was that he was going to let the General Welfare Committee be stacked to let the bill out for a public vote of the whole council. That means he sold his religious values to get the power of the city council speakership. So the hearings took place early on in the term, let's say January, February. I called up Valone's office, never expecting that he would come to the phone. He was the Shein Melech. He was the second most powerful president of city government. I called up and I said, I'd like to leave a message for Mr. Valone. There's a pause on the phone, a minute or two, and all of a sudden a man picks up and says, Rabbi, Pete Valone here. I was shocked. I said, Mr. Valone, Mr. Speaker, I didn't expect you to come to the phone. He said, Rabbi, what you did in your run for office, I have the deepest respect for you, for standing up for God's values. Whatever it is that you want that I can do for you, I'm going to do for you. Ask me what you want. I said, the first thing is, when you're going to have this hearing, Mayor Koch is going to speak first. I'd like to speak second, so it could be Zula Umazu, and when all the media is still there, I'd like to give him a little lekach. I didn't use that word to him. He said, you got it, Rabbi, you're speaking second. He says, what else do you want? I said, Noach Deer, who's now a judge and a very fine fellow, did tremendous chasadim, tremendous kiddush Hashem, and he did me pashut, taiva as well. But we had our little differences to a certain extent. I had to light a fire under him sometimes when it came to these issues, because he didn't want to take the heat. I said, I heard a rumor that Mr. Deer is going to try to get off of the city council, of the General Welfare Committee. He's representing Orthodox Jews. Mr. Speaker, if it's too hot for him in the kitchen, he shouldn't be a city councilman. I want him to be on that committee, whether he likes it or not, so that he has to defend our values. He said, Rabbi, he ain't going nowhere. Thank you very much. Goodbye. Peter Valone, what happened was, at the hearing, Koch spoke, and then I see the guy who's holding on to the cards. His name is Sam Horowitz, little dumpy old guy from Brighton Beach, Coney Island. And I see he's going like this. He sees my name, he sticks it under a whole bunch of cards like this, yeah, burying it. So it was very funny. It's mamish min hashamayim. Listen to what happened. First of all, when Koch came, listen to what I did. Koch is going to speak. I took 10 Hasidic guys. The city council has like Ezras Noshim, you know, a balcony. I told the guys, listen, you go. As soon as they announced Mayor Ed Koch, stand up in the balcony and everybody turned their backs. 10 guys stood up and turned their backs. Everyone looked up there in the back and saw the Hasidic Biba hits with the long coats, and all the cameras took it. Was all over the TV. Machal number 1, you hear? And the New York Post had 2 pages. And the New York Post wrote, the one who wrote it was a reporter named Joe Nicholson, who was an open Mishkav Zocha. He was schlotzing from this. He came over to me, couldn't stand me, and he said, did you have anything to do with it? Well, I said, well, Joe, you figure it out. See, he writes, it's assumed that the guy, Rabbi Levin, who just ran against him for mayor, organized that thing to show the disrespect for the mayor, you know, respect for God. So that was how the day started. Then Koch spoke. Then the guy puts the cards under. Listen, see, he's going with the cards. One of the next cards he has is a friend of mine. And the friend of mine said he was representing the agudah Sarabonim. So he calls up Rabbi so-and-so. He calls him up, but not me. Rabbi so-and-so gets up. And I'm not going to get into what he said, but suffice it to say, what he said was he accused the top 3 politicians in New York of being Mishkevei Zocha. He was 100% right with Koch. He spoke about Carol Bellamy, who had just lost for office. She was a lesbian. He was a right. He named a partner. It was mamish. All Gehenna broke loose. And the agudah Sarabonim of Hirsch Ginsburg was getting phone calls, and he didn't know what to do and how to handle it. This guy went like bananas. He was all over the place. Okay, so that was just the beginning of the day. 2 or 3 hours passed. Half the media, at least, or 3/4 left. And finally, Sam Horowitz feels it's safe to call Rabbi Levin. The media is mamish, they had hundreds of witnesses. I must have been number 50 or something. And the media is like this, sleeping. So listen to this. I get up and I say, Mayor Ed Koch has infected New York City with a case of moral AIDS. So the guy wakes up, he has his gavel, he says, bang it, bang, bang, bang. You can't say that. I said, why? There's no more freedom of speech in this council hearing? He said, you can't insult the mayor. I said, listen here. You're not my mother. Oh, they got quoted. People say it to me 25 years later. That's what they remember. I said, you're not my mother. You're not my mother. And there's freedom of speech here. And I'll say what I want to say. And furthermore, I just ran in '84 in your district for congressman and got 35% of the vote. If you continue to bother me, I'm going to run against you for city council. Just like that. And then I continued to say all the garbage of Koch. The lights went on. And we made it to the news and everything else. Rabbi said, I just want you to understand, I've been doing this for 31 years. I don't give a darn what agudah says, what the feinschmeckers, there were a few feinschmeckers here, big tzaddikim, they were doing Maisa Kanoyas, they ripped down some of my signs. Not only that, they made phone calls here trying to intimidate that I shouldn't be able to speak here again. I think I'm here. They stuck tissue paper into the lock to try to lock the lock that I shouldn't be able to get in here. We got in here. Stop the shtusim and put on your brains, your thinking caps. Listen to me, Rabbi said, this doesn't come for nothing. Let me tell you how this story started, and then we'll get back to 1986. A week before this happened on a Sunday. And I had a full week of unbelievable publicity. A week before that, listen, what happened? There was a New Jersey newspaper, a Jewish newspaper called the New Jersey Jewish Standard, that decided to list a Mishkav Zocher couple. Everything broke loose, and the media was talking about it, made the New York Times. All of a sudden, Channel 11 took out Rabbi Levin from years ago, dusted him off, and came to my shul to interview me. That was signal number one from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Usually you have to run after the media. And if in your New York ultra-liberal place they hate you, even if you run after, it doesn't help. That the media came to me, they called me, and it was hard for them to find me. They couldn't even find my number. They mamish spent an hour until they tracked down Rabbinical Alliance of America, and then they called me, Ganzamaisa. The guy came all the way down with the whole truck to New York. Okay, that was signal number one. Thursday, CBS TV, not the elections, this first story, Thursday, CBS TV came on the same night. So then when you get twice in a week, in 4 days, major channels, televisions in television in New York comes to you in the shul, if you're a Balamun and you understand and you know what you're doing and what you've been doing, you understand this is a signal affirmation from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Let me tell you a quick story, a Hasidic story. There was a Yid, I think his name was Reb Simcha Bunim Pshischa, I think. He used to live royally, maybe he was following the Rishna Mahalach. He used to live high on the, excuse the expression, they say high on the hog. He lived high on the kosher duck. And he used to mamish live like Malchusdik. And he went to his favorite hotel, and he sat down, and he started offering duck, he started ordering this and that. He was there for a week and a half. Finally the Baal Bus comes to him, and he says, listen, Rebbe, you got to pay the bill. I mamish don't have money. You got to pay the bill. So they said to him, he says to him, don't worry, we'll take care of it. I'm good for the money. Another half a week goes by. By the way, Simcha Bunim Pshischa did not have a red cent. He was broke and he had tremendous chayvus. And he came to Warsaw, some big city, and he's eating it up and everything else. And he's really quite dejected. And at night he's staying in Mistoros, Tifke Nafshki, or whatever the pasuk is. He's crying. He's not happy. He's not a happy. Finally, the Balabas says, listen, this is it. This is it. I can't keep you another day. I forgot if he cried, if he was mispalo, what happened. All of a sudden, there's a knock on the door. Who opens the door? He opens the door. Who's there? Temeril. Temeril was one of the richest ladies in Poland. She was a lady. She owned massive amounts of real estate. She comes in, and the Rebbe sits her down. She comes in probably with her associates. And she says, Rebbe, I want to offer you to be my real estate manager. You will have this and this salary, phenomenal amount of money. The Rebbe says no. No. He's in chayv up to his nose. He's offering him like the equivalent of $1 million salary, and he says no. He says, well, what do you, I'll be really upset. Well, what do you want? Nothing less than a shutfus. I want to be shutfus in all your properties, and we'll be in business together. She says, Rebbe, you must have... No, Rebbe. That's it. We have nothing more to say. She leaves. He calls in. The guy says, you're getting paid today? He orders some more duck. Like, unbelievable. A few hours later, Temerl is back. She accepted the deal. She accepted the deal, and she paid all of his chayvus. She gave him a handsome advance, and that's the end of the Hasidic Maisa. So they asked him, what's going on here? How did you do such a thing? How did you pull it? What? He says, Hatzachaim. When Temerl came to my door at the last minute, I realized this is Min HaShamayim, and they're opening up doors for me in the Shemayim. So if they're opening up doors already, why should I stop at being a worker? I see the bracha as being chal. I'm going to go all the way. I'm not saying that I'm not the Peshischa. I don't even know if I'm right to be the Peshischa's chassid. But when I saw that 2 TV stations in New York, in this late stage of the devolving culture, was coming down, I knew it's going to be big stuff next week, and we went full steam, and Baruch Hashem, we zocheh tremendous Kiddush Hashem. So anyhow, after I did this, and I screened, and I got all the TV in 1986, so NYC Television, which has the city municipal TV at the time, was taping live the city council hearings, and in order not to be boring, they were doing interviews with different personalities. So they sent somebody down, they want to interview me. I think the guy's name was Ken Orletta. He's also a famous writer, he's still around. You hear Ken Orletta? Listen to this. Right after they put me on, they put on Zulu Mazu to speak at the city council, a guy who's now dead. He was the head of the Stephen Wise Conservative or Reform Synagogue. And he had a very fancy name, which at my middle age I'm forgetting. His name was Balfour Brickner. You hear? Listen to the name. Balfour Brickner. Listen to this. So I'm outside talking to the Catholic lawyer for the Catholic Church who's fighting this. And Brickner walks by on his way in. He says to me, hi Yehuda. He's trying to be friendly, you know, the libs. I said, hi Balfour Desecration. He says, what? He's like, comes back to me. What'd you say? I said, Balfour Desecration. What are you? I said, what do you think you are? You're a desecration. You're going against the Torah. Shame on you. Fuck. Get out of here. I got in front of the Catholic lawyers watching this. He says, you know, Yehuda, you're sick. You need a doctor. I said, could be you're right. Who do you use? Wait. Big radio program. Bob Grant. Top of the line. ABC Radio. So I called up and I said, Bob, why don't you make a debate between me and Balfour Brickner on your radio program? So he tried. Brickner wouldn't come. Channel 2 or Channel 5 TV has live at 5 a debate. They call up Brickner. He couldn't refuse. They say, we'd like you to debate the gay rights thing. So he has to say yes. Who did they pick to debate him? That fat, mean slob, Yehuda Levin. So uncouth. Balfour Brickner comes in. They keep us like before, you know, in like a little room. So he sticks out his hand to shake my hand. No. Better than that. They kept us in separate rooms, like Chayas, you know, before the Coliseum. They kept us in separate rooms. Then they bring us out to the set when there's an advertisement a minute before the debate's going to begin. So Balfour Brickner's a big, lanky guy, finely chiseled features. He's wearing a herringbone jacket with a patch here, a suede patch. I'm coming with this black suit, a little pot belly, you know, with, you know, I do make sure to comb my hair and beard before I go on. I try to, a little bit to be miyashiv my shortcomings. I come in and everybody's there, like the crew. There's around 7 or 8 people there on the set behind the cameras, and we're about to go on. Brickner stretches out his hand to give me shalom. I said, I'm not shaking your hand. Why not? You are the Balfour desecration. He goes, oh my God. And he managed, the last few, he falls into his chair, like the last, his mom is like, how can it be such a savage, so uncouth? You know, I talk to Orthodox Jews, we have inter-religious this and that, or whatever, the denominational, New York Board of Rabbis, and this guy, this savage, this, what Norman Lamb called the 16th century caveman. He's all like this. So this is what happened on the TV. Let me tell you what happened. They showed a shot for a half a minute of gays standing and protesting at St. Patrick's Cathedral, screaming, we want our rights. Then the guy says to Balfour Brickner, listen, he says to him, Rabbi Brickner, you said that we don't follow the ancient Bible on this, that you stone homosexuals. We don't stone homosexuals or adulterers. That's what you said, right, Rabbi Brickner? He says, yes, we can't take the Bible literally. Listen. Then they said, Rabbi Levin, what do you say? I said, for the longest time, I was wondering about these, what do I call them? Yes, these very important clergymen, very distinguished clergymen, and why they're so pro-homosexuality. And then I got to thinking, homosexuality, adultery, they're pro all these things, you know, there's no more adultery laws, no more sexuality, no more Bible. Clergymen. Then I realized, maybe it's something personal. The camera is on his face. Listen to this. The set really sees I'm a savage. They know what's coming. He's like this, the thinker. Mamish like this. With the hand open on. He's like, all of a sudden he realizes what I'm saying. You see his eyes. What did you say? I said, calm down, Balfour. I wasn't talking about you. I said distinguished clergy. I didn't mean you, Balfour. He's mamish cooking. He would have been Reiseach on Shabbos, Michael, more than Michael. Mamish. I'm telling you, it's unbelievable. Wait. So they go back and he tries to say something else. It's already the end of the interview. I turn to him, I say, listen here. You don't need somebody who eats quiche with Comandante Ortega, the communist, to tell the Jewish view, not on morality and not on communism. Boom, that was the end. He got up. I'm telling you, everybody was smirking. All the goyim, the liberals, it didn't matter. They were all smirking. He got up. You're a horse's backside. I said, he used a different word. I said, thank you very much, Balfour, and have a good day. Okay. Anyhow, Rabbi side. So we go up to Ken Oleta to be interviewed on what just happened downstairs in City Hall. Listen to this. This is how the interview starts. Rabbi Levin, you're a rabbi. You represent people, Jewish people. You're supposed to be a clergyman, well-spoken, kind, and gentle. He said, you were downstairs there, screaming and yelling. There was a whole tumult. It was very undignified, Rabbi Levin. Do you think that that's the way things should be for a clergyman? Oh, he hit me so hard. I'll never be able to answer him. I'm just so flustered. I have no idea what to say. I said, before I answer that question, Ken, let me apologize to everyone who's now watching this live in the TV audience. The man who just spoke there, who they made me wait until they interviewed me, his name is Balfour Brickner. We call him the Balfour desecration. He's an embarrassment, and anything he says is the exact opposite of traditional Judaism. So Oleta just asked me this insulting question. Do I answer him? Nah. I go right over his head and I talk to the people and I use his emtsoi, his conduit, to get my message across and step on that lowlife misyavin, you understand? And make a kiddush Hashem that the galachim and the religious people who are watching should see that there's no derech eretz here. We're very undignified and we stand up for Kvayt Shemayim. Parenthetically, remind me in case I lose track. I'm telling you, it's very hard at this age to maintain, go back and forth, you know. So you remind me to get back to the Ken Oleta story. Parenthetically, we're now on the eve of Hanukkah. Imagine the OU, the RCA, For that matter, Lubavitch, Satmar are all meeting with agudah Yisrael. Once in a while this happens. For big Klal Yisrael Zachen, they all get together, all the ortho organizations, Nismoilim Liyaminam. Listen to this.
Wir haben doch ein größeres Problem. Die wohnen mit den Politicians, sie machen den Mischbesucher in den Gymnasien. Und man darf etwas machen am Achu.
Well, I asked them Oetzes, and really we can't do that because of them.
Ist was? Nee, ist was?
Well, we won't be able to support our yeshivas.
Aber was meinst du, steiten Tilm Kielecha Ragni Kulai Kalayoin? Warum sich gepflegt sich Teuten, mamisch, auf Miller?
This isn't the old days. We're no longer on this level. We have to be practical. Switch the scene. Now we have the Agudah OU RCA version of Hanukkah and the Chashmonoyim. There's Matis Yoga with a long white beard standing here. And Yehuda says, Tata, they're eating chaza, they're doing nevala, tiboy lahegmoin, it's gefährlich. Wait, we have to ask advice. Hello, Moshe, you're in touch with all the, you crazy? 5 or 6 people? You're going to go start a revolt, stand up for Kvayt Shemayim, make a machar? They'll throw you in prison and you won't get any funding and nothing else. Yehuda, please, don't be a hothead. Stop it. Happy Hanukkah. No? Isn't that what would happen? That's exactly what they're doing. For the Moises, nothing. Machar? When was the Machar? What Machar? Where Machar? Listen, Rabbi said, let's get back to 1986. Now you have an idea of how Hanukkah would have happened if, right now, if we had to do it today. This is how Hanukkah, there would be a Hanukkah? 100% not. 1,000% not. Rabbi said, let's get back to 1986. And now I used Ken Oleta to smack up Balfour Brickner and be Mekadesh Shem Shemayim, show the difference between a real Jew and that. Now it's time to answer the idiot's question. So I said, Ken, you know that question you asked me about dignity and everything else? Ken, I want to tell you, I'm not a dignified person. And when something really hurts me, I respond, and it might not be dignified. You know, Ken, there's a movie now starring Richard Gere. I said, I didn't go to the movies to see it. I read it in the original version. It's called the Bible. The movie is called David and Bathsheba. And in that movie, in the story, in the original script, David was dancing with utter abandon in front of the Holy Ark as it was being brought back into Jerusalem. He actually took off some of his clothing. His wife, the queen, said to him, David, you're acting like one of the undignified, like one of the servant men here. How can you do that? And David answered his wife, listen, when it comes to God's glory, my dignity is not important and I just can lose it. So I'll tell you, when they are promulgating pro-homosexual legislation in the middle of the biggest and most important city in America, and it's affecting religious people and families, I lose my dignity. You're right. Now tell me, Ken, what does it take for you to lose your dignity? Would it be if the brigands violated your wife or daughter in Central Park? Would that get you going? Would that get you upset? In other words, when do you get undignified, Ken? What's he supposed to say? What's he supposed to say? 1986. Rabbi Say, let me tell you a few stories about agudah Yisrael of America. In 1983, I was sitting in a pizza shop called Green's. It was the last week of December, Green's Pizza Shop in Williamsburg. I seem to recall, it was a very long time ago, I'm almost zicher, I could be mistaken, that they were selling at that time the New York Daily News in Green's Pizza Shop. Not 100% sure, but I think so. It was a different door. I had that Daily News. Either I bought it somewhere else, I don't know where I got it in Williamsburg. I think I got it there. I'm looking through, and on like page 13 or 14, there's a thin column with a little article. It says like follows. The Salvation Army, Gentiles, has refused Mayor Koch's gezerah that in order to get city funding to perform charity, you have to sign that you do not discriminate in hiring against Mishkevei Zachar. So the Salvation Army is making what in old-fashioned terms is called a Kiddush Hashem. They say we will not sacrifice our religious principle, and even if we lose hundreds of thousands of government dollars, we won't sign. I read this, and I said, dun 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 dun. I was 30 at the time. What do you think Kojo of Borough Park is doing, or ODA of Williamsburg, or agudah, or that's Satmar, right? Or Lubavitch, or Agudah? What are they doing? Are they joining with the Salvation Army? I don't think so. They're just signing Shashtil. So this is what I did. January the 1st is the Goyish New Year's. It's a super slow news day. They have one of the big football games, Sugar Bowl or Super Bowl. I don't even know what it is. But a very slow news day. Listen to this. It was before faxes, before cell phones, before computers. And we sent out word to the press. I'm making a press conference on the steps of City Hall to present the Scrooge Award. How many of you read Dickens or heard of Scrooge? Okay, I'm sorry to say this in the Bismedish, in the epicenter of Yerushalaim, but it's called, what was it called, the Kratzmach story? And Scrooge is this cheap guy who doesn't want to give any tzedakah. So I'm giving the Scrooge Award to Ed Fegelakach because he is taking away, tight-fisted, to take away charitable dollars from religious institutions like the Salvation Army who don't want to sign on to his pro-homosexual, deviant, mishigasan perversions. I let the press know at 12 o'clock I'm doing this. I take an oak tag and we cut up a picture of Koch's face and we make a little presentation, Scrooge Award of 1984. Yeah? I take a Goyish Galach, a few people, 5 or 6 people, we go down to City Hall. Listen to this. Strikes 12, you have WINS radio there. You have, it was a slow news day. New York Newsday is there. The New York Daily News is there. The Mooney newspaper, which was a great newspaper, called the New York City Tribune, was there with a photographer. We're about to start. All of a sudden, who comes over? He's wearing those woolen snow caps. You know, like the kids go to school in the woolen snow caps that you fold. He's wearing the woolen snow cap. Eddie Koch b'kvodi ba'atzmai. Now, everybody had a little Years HaMalchus, the mayor of New York, and he happens to be not a short guy. He's around 6'4". Very tall. He's an imposing figure. And he's walking over, and the people are mamish moving away a little. Not me. I go like this. Oh, Mr. Mayor, you came personally to accept your award. Thank you. We're honored. Nah, get away. That's what he's a big arrogant guy. He walks up to the microphone. It's my press conference. I called it. He doesn't care. Mr. Arrogant. He walks over to the press conference. He says like this. I want to explain that everybody in this city has the right to celebrate their diversity. And the Jewish community can celebrate in Borough Park their rabbis, and the Chinese can celebrate their this. And the homosexuals have a right to celebrate their thing, and it's only fair, and therefore we have to make sure that everybody's treated equally under the law. Like Mom's like Frank Perdue. He's Mamish, I don't know if you know that, is the chicken, the Goyish chicken man. And then I say, oh, but Mr. Mayor, what? No, and he walks away. Then it was my turn. The next day in the newspapers, New York Newsday, New York Daily News, Tribune had a picture of me. My head is like this, but you see the back of me, my hat and everything else, and you see Koch standing and talking. I'm standing next to him with the sign saying the Scrooge Award for Koch. Unfortunately, it wasn't in the major paper, it was only in the Tribune paper, but it was very geschmack. I have it somewhere. WINS was hacking with it a whole day because it's a slow news day, so it's a gewaldige thing. Here's the question now. What was agudah Israel doing? In early January, the Catholics and I wrote in the name of the Igud Rabbanim, which I represent, Ad Hayom Hazeh. Who does Rabbi represent? He's nobody, he's crazy. Why? I represent 850 rabbis signed up as a list. Why is that nobody? What does that mean? If you don't represent Satmar or OU or Liebe Schmelz, if you don't represent one of them, then you have no shaykhs in Klal Yisrael, you're not allowed to have a day? What's pshat? I don't know what these malcontents want. But I say, and I'll repeat it, I said it the first time, I'll say it again, I'll say it ad nauseum. If it makes them happy to go on buses, Nayas, Yeshiva World News, or anywhere else and vent
Gedolim is a Michiganist, perverted, that was one-night track mind. Who does he represent? As Achil Hashem, he's despicable. If it makes these people happy, hit me again, brother. Just feel good. Who cares? I'm trying to win a popularity contest there. Let me tell you, I believe that 50, 60, or maybe as much as 70% of Klal Yisrael today, which I call the lipple-listening, sushi-eating, Caribbean vacationing crowd, I believe that they don't like me, they think there's something wrong with me. And I said it the first time, but I'll say it again, that's just fine with me. That's an affirmation I'm doing the right thing. Because in his Sefer, not Torah is not Hefker, but Ephraim Luft, the anti-music guy from Bnei Brak, who's tremendous, doing a tremendous service, he says in his Lashon HaKodesh Sefer, he brings down from Sefer Yeshlo Rabbeinu Tam, a mushal of a tree trunk. There are very few branches that are near the tree trunk, and as it goes out, it gets many more branches. And he says that's a mushal to the situation for Klal Yisrael from time immemorial. That if you find the masses are in favor of something, chances are there's something wrong with it. The closer to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, to the Torah, to the Shittas, the less branches there are. It happens to me, not that I'm a tzaddik, but I had big Rabbi and Rabbi Avigdor Miller, the Kasha of Rav and others. And because of this, I've got my head screwed on straight. And it doesn't concern me in the slightest what people say or think. I'm not trying to win a popularity contest. So Levin, if you're not trying to win a popularity contest, why did you come to Yerushalaim to speak? I didn't come to speak, but the reason I decided after these years to speak is because there is such a lack of knowledge between right and wrong and what the hashkafa is and how we're being betrayed that I have an obligation to put out there what I got from my Rebbeim. So here's a Maisa in 1986. In 1986, I tell you, in December, the Salvation Army was the Rosh Rishon L'Doveship Kedusha. We, Klal Yisrael, were not Zoicha. The Catholics, who had millions of dollars of New York City funding for Catholic charities and Catholic hospitals, went to court. They took Koch to court. Again, did agudah take Koch to court? No. Did agudah say they're not going to sign? No. They waited months. You hear? I gave a letter in the name of the Igud Harabanim as a friend of the court. We didn't have the money to go to court. We don't have the big offices with the fundraisers and the conventions like agudah do. We don't have the big memberships. 4 or 5 months went by, or 3 months. I counted by the seconds. How many seconds in a minute? 60. How many minutes in an hour? Another 60. Every time, a second that agudah did not sign, did not step forward, it was a chil Hashem oyev v'noira. I have a written psak, a page long, I have it here, from the Sha'ar Mitzion Ba'alocha, that you measure chil Hashem by what the Toivim Sheba'umas are doing on morality, and what the Jews don't do. That's chil Hashem. That's what agudah was doing. Now, when they saw everything else, they finally signed on a few months later. Now listen to this. If that wasn't bad enough, in Mishpacha magazine, a year ago, I think for the 10th anniversary of the P'tira of Rabbi Sherol, who was a tremendous asking, did many good things, but when it comes to these inyanim, he made his own Messiah. He had no Messiah from Gedolei Yisrael on this. He usually did not ask them and did not discuss this with them. So Rabbi Shera, Rabbi Nosson Shimon of Art Scroll, did a rewrite of history. And he, in writing platitudes about Rabbi Shera, in his Mishpacha article, he wrote a story about how Rabbi Shera took a bold, courageous leadership role in challenging Mayor Koch. Yeah, that kind of bold leadership role was, you understand, I don't know what to compare it to, but it was a bush of Yechepa, and this is lies that we are being told. How do I know? I was there. I was dealing with the Catholic lawyer. Agudah was nowhere to be seen for months. Kojo, forget about it. Satma, this, forget about it. Let me fast forward a few months, a few years later. I get a telephone call in '91 from the Gentiles. They say that they're about to, and then we're going to open up for questions. I have a lot more to say, but I don't want to bore you, so we'll open up for questions. The Gentiles said as follows: there is a open lesbian partnership
between a woman named Roberta Achtenberg and her partner. They're from, this is 91. They are from Los Angeles. They have an artificially inseminated child, the lowest of the low. They march, they drive in an open coupe car with their baby in the annual homosexual parade in San Francisco. This woman has now been proposed to be the deputy secretary of the Department of Housing of the U.S. government. She has to go through a United States Senate hearing. They said, Rabbi, can you please get your Jewish organizations to ask Senator Al D'Amato, the conservative Republican, to vote against the nomination of Roberta Achtenberg? I said, I'll sure try. Ring-a-ding-a-ling-a-ding-a-linga. Agudah Yisrael. We help Klal Yisrael. We have the Gedolim on our side. Don't even think about going anywhere else if you want Torah ideology. Okay. Can I speak to the Das Torah, Rabbi David Zweibel? Yes. David Shalom Aleichem, Yehuda Levin. I just got a call from the Gentiles from this and this organization. This were asking me. Could you please ask Rabbi Shera if he can contact Senator Al D'Amato and say that to have a lesbian in 1991 at such a high stage gives them credence and it's terrible hashkasa and to be an example and it's going to have a ripple down effect on laws and everything else. Yes, Rabbi Shera. I don't know if he called me back. Probably I had to call him back. Rabbi Shera said no. Why? Because we're wasting political capital. D'Amato's going to do the wrong thing anyhow. So if we don't think we can get anywhere, we can't use it for them because then we used up capital. I'll translate what that means. We might not be able to ask them when we need another program with some shkolim. So why do a losing thing? We only do if we can win. You understand there's a new hashkaf in Klal Yisrael. Those stupid Chashmadayim. The stupid people who went into the cave on Shabbos, the stupid, foolish Yidden who are not Hellenists. You can't win. It's about winning. It's about gaining. We can't win. We don't ask. Anu Hashkafa, where is that source in the Torah? Where is that? There's no such thing. Where is there a Hafkah in the Aseret HaDibros or anywhere else in the Torah? If you can't win, if we don't gain something or we're going to lose, you don't have to stand up for Kvod Shemayim. Where is that from? Where's that disease, sickness? Show it to me. So I said to Zweibel, Rabbi Zweibel, he's a very fine person. Listen, you have to understand when I curse out people, it's on specific things. But they're much chashuva and much holier and much greater than me. And I mean it seriously. And for some of the things I said last week, I was very, very sharp. And maybe I was too sharp. But I explained to you what my passion is. I told you, I explained it to Kendall letters. And the question is, why are they not passionate? In other words, if I said it last week, I'll say it again. If your wife or your sister was accosted and confronted in the street by a New York politician who beat her, kicked her, and stepped on her and pulled off her shekel, would you ever vote for that person, no matter how much money they gave you, or your moistus? You wouldn't. So if a politician would not pick up your garbage, Erev Pesach, making that extra garbage pickup, they would have the sanitation man coming to every door, knocking on the door and saying, we're about to pick up the sanitation, but it's costing us an extra $2.5 million in the city budget. We can't afford it now. We're bankrupt. So if you orthoed you want it, you have to give us $50. That's the cost of running this thing. I'll never vote for that mayor again. Never vote for that politician again. By the way, the politicians from Mishkav Zacha. Well, is he giving money to the Meisters? Sure, I'll vote for him. So what is it? What's more important? So for how much are you going to give up on $50? You won't vote for the politician. Homosexual marriage, you'll still vote for him. The Meisters, the Cheshbonis, das. Where does that leave us? Excuse me if I still think rationally. They have no answers. Listen here, be clear. Not one of the Rabbonim, Rosh Yeshivas, or Rebbes has an answer. In 30 years, there's only one joker that we know of who tried to write something that he tried to pass off for Das Torah. It just happened now in Monroe, somebody called the Sharmasher, because the Bnei Yoel are in a fight with the Bnei Shmoyel and the Bnei Zoyel. So therefore, if one of them votes for Schmutz number 1, the other one has to vote for Schmutz number 2. So they have to figure out a way how they can vote for the Schmutz number 2. So he came up with a Psak Halacha. Yeah? Psak Halacha is, as long as the guy, he could be pro-gay Schmutz. But as long as that's not his major issue, if it's just a minor issue and he never promised he's going to make it into law, he just says he supports it, so then my team. So I was always the Tilkel min Atzad of Shabbos. Now I'm making jokes. I don't know what he said, but whatever he said, it's stupid. He knows how to learn 1,000,000,000 times more than me, but I have a Messiah, and he's fakishivt with the stupidity of the politics. He has to recuse himself because he has shaykhad. And I'm sorry, it's a Chil Hashem what he wrote. By the way, and I say this with love and respect. I'm serious. I say this with love and respect. And at an agudah convention in the last 3 years, on Friday night, Shabbos, when there can't be a tape recorder, Aaron Kotler, the CEO of Lakewood, got up at something where the Novominska and Rabbi Levin and 1 or 2 others were sitting, and he asked the following question. He said, I have an X amount of millions of dollar budget, and I feel I have to bring politicians who support every schmutz in the world into Lakewood and chan for them and everything else. Yelamdenu Rabbeinu, am I allowed to do this or not? Now there was a fellow from Baltimore whose name escapes me, it's with a B, and he's a lobbyist. That's what he does for a living, he's a lobbyist. And he's a frum guy, and he's against this stuff. And he spoke to his Rebbe, Rabbi Feldman, about this. And Rabbi Aaron Feldman, on the Gedolim, I think his name is Aaron Feldman, he's one of the best. If left to his own devices, when you talk to him, he's pretty good. He understands that there's something wrong with this Mahala. So listen to this. So he asked, and I think, I'm sorry to say, but I think, I'm not 100% sure, but I'm 90% sure that Rabbi Chaim Levin stood up and said, basically, it has no grounding in reality. It is not halacha. It is not hashkafa. He said, well, if this is the major issue of the politician, you can't vote for him. But if it's one of his issues, you could vote for him. Okay, so let's go through the issues now. Listen. I'm for cost-effective light bulbs. I'm for lowering the tolls at the Brooklyn, not lowering the tolls at the Brooklyn Bridge. I'm for gay marriage. And I also believe that we should defund the state of Israel. That means no foreign dollars now for the state of Israel. What would agudah Yisrael say? Would they let us vote for a guy who's saying defund the state of Israel, don't give them a penny to self-defense? Does anybody in this room think agudah would not wave their Zionistic flag and say, we have to be concerned with the security of the state of Israel? In other words, not like the pasuk says, Einei Hashem Elikecha on Eretz Yisrael Reisha Davar. We have to assure, and we have to make pictures with them and put it on coalition. We have to assure we're God's Fazargis. Wait a second. So they would tell you to vote against the guy because he's anti-Israel. But what about if he's pro-gay marriage? Rabbi Chaim Levin said if that's not his major issue, if that's not his number one issue, you're allowed to vote for him. Wait a second. Wasn't there a Gemara somewhere who said Godol hamachtiyo yosim min hargoy? That bringing somebody into licentious schmutz activities is worse than killing someone? Isn't that they learned that from Bnei Midian, etc.? So why are they saying that the security of Israel, that's a defining issue? At the worst, that's killing Jews. Machtiyo is worse. The Gemara says why? Ki ha-hargo ba'olam hazeh, v'machtiyo hargo ba'olam hazeh u'ba'olam haba. What happened to that Chazal, Rabbi Levin? Just a little fat Levin asking Kvoid Havash Yeshiva Shlita. What happened to that Chazal? They never explain. There is no explanation. Nobody could put down in a pen and paper. You remember the person who hid under the bed of his Rebbe and he said, Toirahi v'lilmud ani tzarech? Why they're supporting all the schmutz that goes on top of the bed and they don't tell us, Toirahi v'lilmud ani tzarech? Give us an explanation why. Levin, you're too intense, you're too screaming. Well, if you understand how many children have been molested
or as they would say in Williamsburg, malastrated over the last 25 or 30 years. And my Rabbi Avigdor Miller said something which we don't need him to say. It's Aleph Beis Nashkafa, but he said it in Tashdam, in Tashma, in the Beis Yankov of Borough Park when I was running for a Congress, because he told me to, and he writes this in a letter. He said, it was right after the Mandrowitz molestation situation, and he said, these things will continue to grow as long as we support politicians who support Chukei Te'eva. So who takes achrayus for this? Agudah, tales they told me. It was 1994 and 96. TWA Airlines still existed, and I took my little kids then, very little kids. They had a special called triple mileage. You could fly from New York to Washington, and from Washington to Boston, and back to New York, and you got triple mileage. And it costed like $30 or $39 a trip. We figured out, as many other people did, believe me, I didn't figure it out first, I was probably the last guy to be told about it, that if you go on the planes and you do X amount of trips, it costs you around $300 a ticket to Eretz Yisrael. Mileage. So we took most of my family to Eretz Yisrael that year that my oldest son had turned Bar Mitzvah. He's now around 26, 27. It was a half a lifetime ago for him. Why did I just tell you that? Another senior moment. Agudah Yisrael, 96. What? No.
Rabbi Miller wrote in his 1981 letter?
No. Rabbi, I'm sorry, we forgot it for a moment. But the point over here is, we fast forward. Oh, thank you. God came back, Baruch Hashem. I don't know which one at this point, but whichever one it is, it's good. Thank you, Hashem. Look, here's the deal. I come back from the vacation, front page story in the New York Post. The Pope from the Vatican is calling upon the United States Congress to vote against something called partial birth abortion. Anyone doesn't know what it is. It's in the third trimester, in the 6th to 9th month, up until the moment of labor. What they do is, they cause the lady to deliver the baby. The baby comes out, they maneuver it that it should come out head first. Listen carefully. There's something called the birth canal. The baby emerges from the womb through the birth canal, comes out. They stick a scissor into the birth canal, a few inches, into the baby's head. These Nazis. They pierce the brain, and then they have a suction tube attached to the scissor. And they squeeze out the brain material. So by the time the baby emerges, a fully formed baby, eating, sleeping, doing everything, by the time the baby emerges, it's partially delivered, partially born, and totally dead. That's called partial birth abortion. So listen to this. Eddie DeFagel-Koch wrote an article in the New York Post. He writes, Sheldon Silver, you're an Orthodox Jew, the Speaker of the New York Assembly. You're Orthodox. I'm pro-abortion. This is murder. How do you, an Orthodox Jew, make your state assembly and pressure them to vote in favor of legalizing this procedure? You hear a Chil Hashem? That's the same Sheldon Silver that continues to appear in pictures with Rev Ruvain and Reb David. You explain it to me. You think Sheldon is finished with that? He also passes gay marriage legislation every year, cuts off debate on it, speeds it up that it doesn't even have to take the 3 days of Bikur like a carbon lahavdil that you usually have to have in the assembly. You understand? Does it at 2 o'clock in the morning, twist. And when the papers ask Sheldon, the Orthodox Jew Silver, who I just saw at the Kaisel this past Shabbos, when the papers asked Sheldon, a liberal paper asked him, what about your Orthodox co-religionists when you're doing partial gay marriage? Isn't this offensive to them? He says, no, it's none of their concern. This is not a religious issue, this is a philosophical issue. And philosophically, all people are entitled to get married. This is who Rev David and Rev Reuven go up to Albany when he goes like this, because when the governor speaks at the inaugural of the new session,
There have been pictures in the New York Times going back to the time of Betsy McCoy when she was the governor, lieutenant governor, and her feet were crossed there in the New York Times, and Mezet Allah, the pulpit, and everything else, and sitting right next to him was Rav Reuven Feinstein. So what is it? Gedolim cards? You're not allowed to question. You just put your mind on automatic pilot. That's Torah. That's what it's all about. There's no more Shalavicha v'Yegetcha. There's no more Messiah from my Rabbeim, the Debretzina, the Rabbbi Avigdor Miller, the Kashiva, Rav Avigdor Miller. It said the Shalom Tzionim Bahalacha, and many things for Rav Moshe and Rav Yankov that were dead set against this. Does that mean I'm being chutzpahdik? No. Rav Reuven is much greater than me. Rav David is 1,000,000,000 times greater than me. But it's a legitimate question. It has to be answered.
You ever asked them?
Yes. Yes. Good question.
And?
I'm going to repeat. I'm going to tell you as follows. A friend of mine named Shloima went over to Rav Feinstein and said to him, "How do you do this with Sheldon Silver? How do you support him? How does he appear at pictures?" Ad Hayom Hazeh, you'll see in the next few weeks, there's the MTJ dinner. You will see pictures of Rav Reuven, Rav David, and the smiling Sheldon Silver giving out awards and everything else. Rav David was asked, and what do you say about Sheldon Silver and all the schmutz he's doing? This was Rav David's answer. Quote, "Who says if you and I were in his position, we would do any differently?" Did everybody hear what I just said? This was the response from Rav David Feinstein. Again, it was at a bris of the son of a Talmud of his in the yeshiva. It was a Sudas Abris. My friend's name is Shloima. I'm not saying his second name, just not to this. That's exactly what he said. I had on one or two occasions very, very brief efforts to get something from him. That was what was said. That's a fact. Let me tell you, when I asked Rav Avram Chaim Levin, you remember that psak?
So why don't you ask them what that means?
Pardon me?
If you agree that
I'll
the
tell
greater, so why don't you ask them what that means?
One second. Listen to me, my friend. I'm going to give you now a list, a whole long list of Gedolim who I spoke to. I'm going to tell you what they answered. And then you'll ask me a question again, okay? Okay? Rav Avram Chaim Levin, here's the situation. I'm in Bayit Vagan Bungalow Colony. It's 2 summers ago. Sheldon Silver did the same thing with gay marriage. Rav Avram Chaim Levin comes to stop off and visit his son Morty Levin, Ephraim Mordechai Levin, named after Rav Lezer Ginsburg's father. Rav Avram Chaim Levin is married to a Ginsburg. And it's gewaldig. You know, there's a saying in Arabic, if Muhammad does not go to the mountain goes to Muhammad. I said, Mamish, Messiata Dishmai, I didn't have to travel to Chicago to ask Rav Avram Chaim Levin this question or call him on the phone. He's here in person. So after davening, I went over to Morty and I said, "Can I ask the Rosh Yeshiva a question?" He says, "I don't control him, do what you want." It's right outside the shul. I go over Shalom Aleichem. He's a very fine person, warm, Mamish Gevaldik. I said, "May I ask the Rosh Yeshiva a question?" He says, "Sure." He takes my hand, he doesn't know who I am, he takes my hand under his hand, the crook, and we're walking towards the bungalow where he's going to have breakfast. I say, "Does the Rosh Yeshiva know that Sheldon Silver, for the 2nd or 3rd year in a row, passed gay marriage in the assembly?" "We know." "Does the Rosh Yeshiva realize that the New York Times congratulated this progressive Orthodox Jew for doing this?" "Does the Rosh Yeshiva know that the Jewish Week congratulated him as well?" "We know." Does the Rosh Yeshiva... So may I ask the Rosh Yeshiva, what was done about this to be Moicha? He said, in Yiddish, "Wir haben ihm geschickt a starken Brief." We sent them a strong letter of protest. The gentleman in the back, if can be so kind, what would you say to the Rosh Yeshiva after he answered you that? We sent him a strong letter of protest. Motzis Gedolei Torah. They sent him. What would you say? What would you ask?
But for example, if Rav Moshe finds
Wait, no, don't jump. I'm telling you, I'll answer everything you want to the best of my ability. Just tell me, what would you ask Rav Avram Chaim Levin? What would you say to him if he told you we sent a starker brief?
Do you think that's enough?
What?
No, she was in public.
What?
She makes it in public.
Oh. Okay. So let's get on. As I said, the Rosh Yeshiva. The Gentiles who read the New York Times or who just see that the Ortho Jews never say a word, they think that the Ortho Jews don't care about gay marriage, which was maybe Mabel Olam. The religious Jews who read the Jewish Week or who know what Sheldon Silver did, they think it's Das Torah because it's, I didn't say these words to them, but the Gedolim card mentality, who's your Gadol, let's flip, they used to they think, Art Scroll and airbrush everything and put it in the Mishpacha magazine, and whoever is featured at this bris or that thing or this mezuzah, that's important. That's who's kaveh das Torah. So Penny Lipschitz decides to put in this one. Penny Lipschitz decides to put in him, or the Joker from Hamodia decides to put in this one. That's das Torah. You understand what's being done to us? So I asked the Rosh Yeshiva. The Orthodox Jews, the B'nai Torah, think there's nothing wrong with this because there's no mecha. Nobody knows about the Shtarka brief. It's Newton's law of physics. Every action to reverse it needs an equal and opposite reaction. How come Yehuda Levin is speaking publicly at the age of 56 and he's naming names of Rabbanim Rosh Yeshivas? You know why? Because everything they're doing in public to be machabed the lowlifes, and by their inferences and what they're doing, so it's come for a time that you have to do it back on the same level. Now listen. Rabbi Isai. So Rav Avram Chaim Levin said to me the following. This is what he said to me. What's your name? And at that point I think he let go of my hand. We were by the bungalow, he's about to go in to eat breakfast. What's your name? I said, Yeshiva, it's really not important. If the Yeshiva wants my name, it's Yehuda Levin. We know about you too. Well, that's what he said. And with that, he had released my hand. I don't know if he's at a good or at a and he went off to the bungalow to eat breakfast. I thought that was the end of the story. It didn't surprise me he was there. Until I heard months later or a year later that Ephraim Mordechai told somebody or several people what his father said to him after they went inside the bungalow. He said, I may not agree with everything that this man says or does, but we need people like him in Klal Yisrael. In other words, there was an understanding, at least, that I have the right to say daily. I mean, I have a Messiah. Let's move on to the next Gedolim.
What did he mean when he said this doesn't agree with what you're saying?
What?
What did he mean when he said doesn't agree?
No, he just said, obviously he doesn't agree. He was the one who said in the agudah you're allowed to vote for somebody
because you have to do it
it's
for
not
the
a major
public
thing.
relations.
What?
You have to do it for the public relations, but as far as he's concerned, why can't he say he's agreeing, but he can't do it publicly because of whatever reason?
Well, I don't know what that means. What do you mean?
Who is Das Torah now?
One second. In other words, either the woman, either the woman, wait a second, we'll answer all the questions. Either he is, listen, we'll answer. Either he is,
You're all thinking the same question.
no, listen to me. Let me move on a little. Let me give 4 or 5 Gedolim first, so you'll understand that I did ask for what they said, and then we'll move on to this, because it's very important that people should know, he doesn't ask, he doesn't do, what is that, who said? Let's go on to Rav Aryeh Malkiel Kotler. It was Rav Eli Ber Wachfeigel 3 years ago in the early winter married off a daughter. His Talmud, Rabbi Stolzenberg, who is now the rabbi of the Young Israel of Avenue R, right next door to the Mir Yeshiva, is a very fine Talmud Chacham, a Talmud Muvik of Rav Eli Ber, said, come with me, we'll give Mazel Tov to Rav Eli Ber. We came right after the chuppah, we gave Mazel Tov to Rav Eli Ber, and we walked outside, and literally, as soon as we walked outside, Rav Aryeh Malkiel Kotler walked out from the chuppah he was leaving to the next event, or whatever it was. I went over, I said, Shalom Aleichem, can I ask the Yeshiva a question? Yes. I said, I just called up Rabbi Teitz the other day of Elizabeth, and I asked him to contact all the modern Orthodox rabbis in New Jersey, because they are making a Kaisim Ksuba Zachar type bill in New Jersey. So Rabbi Teitz said to me, what is Lakewood doing? So I want to ask the Rosh Yeshiva, what is Lakewood doing? Rav Kotler turned red. He's not into these things. He has no idea what Lakewood is doing. You know who knows what Lakewood is doing? Can anybody tell me the name of who knows what Lakewood? What? Aaron Kotler. So who's the Das Torah on what Lakewood is doing on Mishkav Zachar? Pardon me?
Aaron.
Wait a second. So wait, and I'm going to tell you stories. Wait, I'm going to tell you stories about Aaron and me. Wait. I want to tell you straight. So I told the Rosh Yeshiva, it's vital that it shouldn't be a Chil Hashem to the Gentiles and to the Jews. It's vital that Lakewood, to Rabbi Shem Kalevsky or to your brother Aaron Kotler, that they must go and lobby against this bill. They must show that Lakewood's against this. This was like 3 years ago. So Rabbi Kotler says to me, what is your name? I said, Rosh Yeshiva, it's really not important. It's the issue. But if the Rosh Yeshiva wants to know, it's Yehuda Levin. Says the Rosh Yeshiva, jetzt ich verstehe. So I want to know, was hat der Rosh Yeshiva verstanden? Rabbi Levin said it with Potter from doing anything about it, or is a Meshugel Dava Echad, or ich verstehe as gerecht, or I understand that there's a Rashi that says Amalek is Mishkav Zacha. I understand that he has a Messiah. What did that mean? And do you think for 1 minute that Lakewood did anything about this? It didn't. Wait, Lakewood Rosh Yeshiva number 2, Rabbi Yerucham Olshin. It was Elul time, around 3 years ago. He was at Ateres Chinka after the chuppah. If I think hard enough, I'll remember whose chasna it was. It might have been a Nakdimin or a Webster. I'm not sure. That Rabbi Webster's farm were being given out at that chasna. I see revulsion. I walk over to him and say, Shalom Aleichem. May I ask the Rosh Yeshiva something? Yes. I said, I got a call from a Gentile. He's a Catholic lawyer in New Jersey, and he's like an Askin. His name is Robert Morrow, and he writes for a Goyish newspaper called The Wanderer, which is a right-wing Catholic newspaper that's around 80 or 100 years old. It comes out of like Wisconsin or Minnesota. It comes out near to where Rabbi Leaf's place used to be. Minneapolis. And he said to me, there's this law coming up, and what are the rabbis in Lakewood doing? He knows more, because he knows. Yeah. He said, what are rabbis doing? So Rabbi Olshin, what are the rabbis in Lakewood doing? Rabbi Olshin says, I don't know if they're doing anything and I have no idea. It's not my department. So I said, I don't understand. It's a Chil Hashem. You see the Goyim asking everything else. And why we put it? It's not part of the Torah. I mean, what? I said, he says, I have nothing to tell you really. Listen to what I said to him. I said, I feel bad. I said, why do I have to be a front to answer for Lakewood? I should tell this Gentile lawyer, go down, here's the address, here's where the Rosh Yeshiva's in office, the dean's office, and go ask them personally. I said, I have a feeling if that happens, then there'll suddenly be some action taken. He says, you know what? You're probably right. That was my conversation. I just hope you're keeping score. That was my conversation with him. Let me go to the next one. A year before Rabbi Sherer was nifta, they honored, the Agudah Yisrael honored somebody named Senator Joe Lieberman. Senator Joe Lieberman supports partial birth abortion and the whole homosexual thing. By the way, this year, he's the one who's introducing in the front page of the New York Times and championing in the Congress that you have to have gays serving openly in the military. This is he's taking the lead role, the Orthodox Jew in the State Senate. That's Joe Lieberman, who a few years after he was honored by Agudah with the Humanitarian Award in 96 or whenever it was, 10 years before a year before Rabbi Sherer was nifta, around 11 years ago, or 12 years ago, Joe Lieberman ran for president, and on Shabbos Tshuva, Motzei Shabbos, he went with his wife Hadassah to the largest gay organization in the country called Human Rights Campaign that has like an $18 million budget. And he spoke to them Motzei Shabbos, promising them every single aspect of their gay agenda. He then went on the IMIS program, and IMIS asked him, 1 second, Senator, you're an Orthodox Jew. You make that misogynist blessing every day in the morning. You didn't make me a woman? I don't make that. I feel that that's wrong. I don't make that. He says, you believe that your superior Orthodox Jews are not allowed to marry regular non-Jews? It doesn't. He says it doesn't say that anywhere in the Bible. You hear? You hear? That's Senator Lieberman. Listen to the story. Listen to the story carefully. So they're honoring Joe Lieberman. In the early 90s, Senator Ashbrook of Missouri's office contacted me and said, I don't understand. You're an Orthodox Jew, Rabbi. We know of you. Senator Lieberman's Orthodox Jew. Why is he with Ted Kennedy, the first sponsors in the country of Mishkav Zocha national legislation? You hear the Chil Hashem? Okay, so now let's go fast forward to around 98 or 99. I have this same Shloima, who's a Philly Talmud, who spoke to David Feinstein. I have him call up Rebellia. Do you know they're honoring Joe Lieberman early next week on Sunday? Did the Rosh Yeshiva approve of this? Do you know what his record is? I didn't know, and I'm not making fun of him, I'm just doing this to be a little melodramatic. I didn't know his record, and they didn't ask me. Dun 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 dun. You mean Rabbi Sherer and Agudah Yisrael doesn't ask the Rosh Yeshiva's things? Really?
So what's this whole story about Das Torah and whatever we did, agudah is doing, if agudah did this and Muzayim? It was wrong, says Rabbi Shtei. What did Yehuda Levin do? I picked up the phone to Shmuel Kamenetsky. Motzi Shabbos. Kamenetsky, Yehuda Levin. Vasmachti, Shalom Aleichem. Tomorrow they're honoring Joe Lieberman. He stands for partial birth abortion and the gay agenda, and he's a sponsor. Thank you for informing me. I didn't know anything about this. I will not shake his hand and make sure not to appear in pictures with him. Okay. Did anybody make a machah to him? Did anybody say so, Joe? Yes! Yehuda Levin took his young kids. One was 13, one was 12, 2 kids. I took the letter I got from Rav Moshe that you have to fight gay rights. Again, what did Rav Moshe say? Listen. L'malois es ha'ulam shall a city hall kol yemei ha'hearings shall ha-gay rights laharois golui l'chol ha'amim she'am Hashem sonei toeva. So what did the grump, what did the Poisik Achron say, Rabbi Sai? You have to go mitzvah shebegufoy against regular gay rights. That's not to not discriminate in employment or housing. For that you have to go begufoy kol yemei ha'hearings. L'malois es ha'ulam laharois golui l'chol ha'amim, to show everybody she'am Hashem sonei toeva that we're a bunch of haters, we loathe abomination. What would Rav Moshe say about voting for a paskud yak in the state senate, Lamoshul, when they came within 3 votes of gay marriage? Does anybody here think that Rav Moshe would allow honoring a politician who's pro-gay marriage or voting for him? Could you raise your hand and explain it to me? I'd like to know. I'd like to know.
Rav Moshe was the head of the agudah.
I'd like to know. Wait a second. Yeah, I have a good question. Rav Moshe was the head of the agudah. Absolutely correct. When we sent him the information, and I sent it to him, it was signed, the letter was signed by Rabbbi Avigdor Miller, the Linzer of the Debetziner of. It took all the way from Sukkot until Adar. And I called up Rabbi Mordechai Tendler to get the letter. And by the way, when was it given? It was given on the day I was performing at the time, and on the day that I was performing the bris on my oldest son, Yosef Aryeh, which is Yosef is Yisoid, Aryeh, a line of Yisoid. And Rav Moshe was the head of Agudah. So I have a question for you. Why didn't he write the letter on Agudah stationery? And he was the head of the Moetzes Gedolim HaTorah. Why didn't he do that? You know who he wrote it on the stationery of? Agudah Harabanim. So what's pshat?
He said, tell me the double agent.
What? Not at all. Who's the double agent?
I understand. He told you to go out with Gufa, but he himself didn't do it?
What do you mean? One second. Rav Moshe at 92 didn't do it? Was that your question? That he didn't come to the city hall?
No, he told me it's been going on since the 80s.
One second, slowly. I didn't slowly. I'm sorry. I didn't say it in the 90s. I said Rav Moshe gave this letter in 83, approximately 3 years before he was nifter. What was your question? And I said he wrote it on Agudas Harabanim stationery and not Agudas Yisrael.
No, for sure, no.
So I'm asking you, why did he do it?
So why did Rabbi Miller go out with him?
I want to say respectfully, does anybody think that this is a serious question? Why didn't Rav Miller himself go out? So let me just answer you. In my first meeting with Rav Avigdor Miller, which I told about my first thing, it's not fair, you didn't come to the first thing, but maybe it's my fault that you didn't see the signs. I told over the story of my first meeting with Rav Avigdor Miller. In my first meeting with Rav Avigdor Miller, he told me, I asked him, do I have to go to see the outgoing governor, Meldrum Thompson of New Hampshire, to ask him to start a morality organization? I'm a Yehsivah Bachurim the Mir, I'm 24 years old. He said, yes, you have to go. I said, why? He said, because really I should go, but I'm getting older and I have to stay here and do my shurim and my other things, and I'm very ungeladen, and it's time for a new generation to do things, you should go. So I said, Rav Miller, it's $110 on People's Express. This was Boy BM on the Sunday of the meeting. 11 o'clock, and the flight was at 1 or 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Do I have to pay for this also? 1 minute. He went upstairs, and he came down with $55, and he gave it to me. And it bothered me for 15 years or more. Why $55? Why didn't he just give me the whole $110? And then I realized, maybe when I became 40 or something, he was showing me something. That if nobody gives you the money, you're not butter from going. I'm giving you the job assignment. And from day one, you know that I said this last week, but I'll repeat it. You know the famous Pnei Yeshua's question, Tum Hutra B'tziva, Tum Techuya B'tziva. So why did they have to wait 8 days until they got oil to light the Hanukkah menorah and miss out the lighting? Tum Hutra B'tziva, Techuya B'tziva, whatever it is, let them light right away. So what's the answer to Pnei Yeshua? Because it's the chinuch, it was Chanukah's of It's the first time. When you do something the first time, there can't be any flaws. Everything has to be of the best to oifen. Rabbi Miller, the first time when he introduced it, he didn't know me from Adam. I could have been the world's biggest tippish. And he went, and for whatever the reason is, he had Siyata Dishmaya, and he told me what to do. And he made me pay half from the beginning to show me when he won't be around or when people won't give me money, I'm not potter from doing the thing. Rabbi Miller explained in his first conversation why he didn't go. He explained why he didn't go. I'm just telling you. Explain why he didn't go. But to me, there's not a question. To me, there's not a question. There's so much more to talk about. We're not going to get there.
What can we do
about
it? Is your goal that from people and organizations to stop supporting all politicians that are not?
100%. Rabbi, I said to people last week, one second, but can I tell a few more Gedolim stories about that I spoke to, so people shouldn't think, you didn't speak, you didn't know. So I gave you so far, Rev Aryeh Malkiel Kotler, Rev Yerucham Olshem, who else, what?
Just because you don't understand fully,
David-
you knock, then you try to understand more.
Wait,
Then you memorize, you understand.
Right,
okay, I know
right,
what you're
stop,
talking about.
stop, excuse me,
Try to understand more.
excuse me. Wait, 1 second. I did this last week, we got to do it again, it's a much different other than last. Look at this carefully. This is the answer to that gentleman's question. He's asking very legitimate questions, and I'm not trying to duck it. This is Rabbi Avigdor Miller from his English Sefer on Parshas Masai. It's chapter 35, verse 33, otherwise known as V'lo sachnifu es ha'aretz. I now read to you from my Rabbi Avigdor Miller. Chanifa denotes secret sin, such as false flattery. You hear? The chanifa that you do to these politicians? It's a deraisa, according to Rabbi Miller, false flattery. And I'm sure he bases it on Rabbi Yoina and Chanifa L'Shaim. Or accepting money from evildoers. You got it? I hope you. Accepting money from evildoers that buy themselves out of punishment. Okay. When the people learn corrupt ways, then the land also behaves corruptly, and it does not yield its produce. Remember I told you earlier about the different things that we're seeing, physical manifestations? Okay. When justice yields to selfish considerations, then crime increases. We have a lot more child molestation. Let's keep going. And the holy land becomes defiled and does not deserve the presence of Hashem. That's Vataki Aretz Eschem. Please remind me to tell you the story of Rav Shmuel Orbach on this pasuk. Please remind me. But the admonition of Lo Sachnifu, fasten your seatbelts, we didn't get to the juicy part yet, applies also to false behavior, secret sins, such as rendering honor to unworthy men, listen to this, or by failure to castigate, that means to, what do you call it, to knock, to beat up, wicked practices, or immorality, or any other transgressions of Hashem's Torah. We still didn't get to the juicy part. To confer honor upon wealthy men despite their sinful behavior is chanifa. Now here we get to the juicy part. Drum roll please. Dun, 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 dun. But even to fail to rebuke a righteous man. Substitute. Rosh HaYeshiva Admar. Or a Torah scholar. Substitute. Rosh Yeshiva Admar. For some misdeed is a sin of chanifa. Now please phrase your question again, please.
Yeah, you should try to fully understand what they're doing. So ask them again and again and again until you fully understand what they're saying, and then discuss all the Gedolim and then see where they're coming from instead of just saying what they said. Think about it with our plain or above average das, and then go like, no, because it doesn't make sense in reality. Because the Gedolim don't just deal with reality, they deal with Torah and das, and das a lot more. As a bigger picture.
Okay.
So you try to understand what they're saying.
Okay.
Keep on asking.
Okay. Fine. Everybody heard the question? Let me tell you a story to answer his question. Let me tell you a story with Rabbi Avigdor Miller. No, listen. It was around 1981 or 82, very early in my radio career. I was 27 or 28 years old. I got on my radio program and I said, Agudah Yisrael is doing this and that, and it's wrong, and it's unfair, and it's disgusting, and I asked the following questions, and I might have either mentioned the word the Gedolim who support agudah or not mentioned them. But it was very clear. Like you said, I knocked agudah, and I was a 28-year-old garnished. A fellow who does not recall this Maisa, but I do, was a 16-year-old bacher in the Mir. His name is Rabbi Levin Handelsman. He is a Rebbe par excellence in the Sift of Lakewood today. He doesn't remember the Maisa. It was more negated to me, I remember it. He came over to me, my program was on Thursday night. He came over to me early Friday morning in Yeshiva in the Mir. How could you do this? You spoke against the good, you spoke against the Gedolim, that's terror. How do you do this? Lashon Hara. Your Rebbe's Rabbbi Avigdor Miller, he would never allow you to do such a thing. Better challenge than you, and a lot earlier in my life. Want to make $100 bet? He would never allow it. I was a little more insecure then. Maybe he was right. Rabbi Miller used to take a constitutional every day. He used to work from his shul, pass to me yeshiva, get brachas, go on a long long walk. I intercepted him at around 11 o'clock when he was taking his walk that Friday. I was mamish this. Rabbi Miller, this is what I said on the radio about agudah last night. A bacher, nameless, there's no reason to tell him the name, had $100 bet with me. Was I allowed to do this, that, etc., etc.? This is Rabbi Miller's response. First, go and collect $100. I promise you. That was his response. That was his response. Now, I'm just saying this. Over the years, on a very seldom occasions, Rabbi Miller made comments to me based on questions because I was like you. I'm serious now. I grew up on the same, even before Mishpacha, but the same Gedolim cards, and it's automatically Das Torah al Yamin al Smala, whatever they say. Even though it's very illogical for the following reason. I said this last week, but a lot of people are not here. In Tavshin Lamed Beis, this Eloi Cohen, I think his name might be Reb Tzvi Cohen, I'm not sure of his first name. He wrote many, many svarim, like this, Sviras Ha'omer, Bein Pesach L'Shvuos, svarim on mikvah, Bamish, and they had like 200 or 300 pages, and they were encyclopedic annotations of notes, and Eloi Otzim. His svarim were all over. He wrote on Tefillin, 2 volumes, on Tzitzis, a few volumes, without a computer. It's phenomenal. He went to his Rebbe, Rav Shach and Ponevish for Haskama. Rav Shach writes, I'm giving Haskama because I know he's a major league Talmud Chacham, but I'm not holding the sugya. I learned what the yeshiva learns. I'm not holding the sugya. So I want to ask a question. Rav Shach, the Gadol Hadar, 2 doiros before the individuals, the Rosh Yeshivas and everything now, the Rebbes, whatever. Rav Shach was saying on himself in areas of halacha, I can't really, I should say on the man, but I can't say on the halacha because I'm not into these sugyas. So why is it that Rav Shach can say this, and that this gentleman assumes that in every single area, in other words, when I go to Rav Aryeh Malkiel Kotlo or the Rosh Yeshiva of Long Beach or Rav Avram Chaim Levin to show a mareh for a question of midah, would I go to ask a complicated question, Choshen Mishpat? Is that putting down the Rosh Yeshivas or knocking them, if we talk honestly and say that? Why does it mean that if Rav Avigdor Miller, who is the Rebbe of these people, when the Novominsker was a bacher or a student or something in Chaim Berlin, Rav Avigdor Miller was already mashgiach in the early mid-1940s. The same goes for Rav Aaron Schechter. You know that Rav Miller personally told me the story of how he took Rav Eliasvei's family out of Lita. I said this last week, but I'll say it again. He went to Kovna, to the American consulate. He said, what did I have to discuss in common with the consulate? I'm a younger man in Slobodka. What did I talk with him about to establish? He said, we found out we both came from Baltimore. I discussed baseball with him. I was nimsachein by him, and we got out the Svei family. I'm just telling you this without meaning any put down. Reb Miller told me this story specifically because I was once speaking to him like this young man and saying, Reb Miller, the Gedolim, the Rosh Yeshivas, they do that and that. See, I'm just going to tell you, he said, let me tell you a story that I had once when I took out this Reb Svei family. And Reb Svei was a very young man. So what was Reb Miller telling me? He was telling me, I'm giving you a Messiah. I put in a little bit more about Rabbi Miller, which I said last week, but I'll repeat again. Rabbi Miller used to finish Shasa every year. Rabbi Miller used to have a chavrusa that almost nobody knew about, with Rabbi Mottel Weinberg, perhaps the best, the Montreal Rosh Hashiva, perhaps the best product to ever come out of Telz, and Ilu Yagoyim, and Shav Shemaitze in Lomdus. Rabbi Miller was super big in it. He was alarmed in much more than people thought. Okay, when Rabbi Miller was Soif Yomo, was in a hospital, and he was laying on the recovery room bed, or before, I don't know which one or both. So there's two stories that I heard from Rav Levin Miller, Rav Shmuel's older brother. He said like this: the nurse came in and she gave a pill to Rav Miller. She said, "Rabbi, take this pill." He said, "What is this for? Is it to reduce the pain or is it to make me heal faster?" She said, "It's to reduce the pain." He said, "Pain is a good thing in this world, better in this world than the next." He refused the pill. Rav Avigdor Miller was asked by his son Rav Levin, "What were you thinking about the whole time in the recovery room and before the operation?" Rav Miller told this to me, Rav Levin Miller. He said he took a certain pasuk in Bereshis, and he had 11 or 16, I forget which one, different mahalchim, new mahalchim that he thought on in the pasuk while he was laying in the hospital room. Please, with all due respect, and it wasn't only Rav Miller. I had it from the Kasher V'Rav, I had it from Shalom Mitzion Balacha. All of these people were far greater, and to a lesser extent the Voidislav Rav, and because of the letter from Moshe Feinstein, and people went to Rav Yankov and spoke to them, about my candidacy for Congress, and Rav Moshe Bick asked somebody to get him, his grandson or somebody, to get him an absentee ballot to vote for me when I was running against Sola, specifically on these moral issues. I have a big Messiah from Gedolim and Poiskin of the Leah's Dar, and I have letters. Let me tell you a quick story. What?
Anybody alive?
Yes, let me tell you a quick story. Yes. Let me tell you who signed for me in Eretz Yisrael on my fighting against the gay rights. It's meaningless. Listen carefully, young man. I laugh at it and it's meaningless. But since we're still in the Gedolim signature cards, pictures mentality, so let me give you my list. 5 years ago, I turned over Yerushalaim on the gay rights parade that they were having for 4 years before that. Turned it over mean there was fires all over, there were protests, people getting arrested and getting bashed, and the parade did not take place. It was pushed into a stadium by Hebrew University. How did I do that? As one person, how did I do that? I came here to Eretz Yisrael. Isru Chag Pesach. I came to Eretz Yisrael. I stayed until 3 days before Lag BaOmer. I came back Isru Chag Shavuos, and I stayed here through the summer. Listen, what I did. I got the Kanoim in Williamsburg, Satmar. I had someone going collecting signatures on a Shtarka Kol Koira decrying the gay parade in Yerushalaim. I put this up in Meir Sharm and environs to embarrass Kina Sofrim, the Kanoim here and the Batats who were doing nothing. I put out 8 different nuschoyes, Medrashim, this, that, my letters from Rav Moshe, letters that I had from the Kasher V'Rav, which I have right here. I called me a Shlucha de Rabbanon B'chol Asar V'Asar. Rav Eli Yisvei told me in 1984 when I called him about helping in my election, "Did you ask das Torah from the Novominsker Rav?" So I said, no, I asked from Rabbbi Avigdor Miller, who wrote to the 47th Street photo. He wrote, Yehuda Levin Rotzla Congress came to Vesialov. But a year before that, he wrote to Eli Yisvei, and I have the letter in his handwriting. Yehuda Levin, Rabbi Yehuda Levin Geba B'Giborim, he's this, he's that. V'kol diburov, Tavshin Mem Gimel, dibarti imo zezman rav. V'rav toiv tzofen b'hatzeisenu zu, that you, Rabbi Svei, I'm advising you to use Yehuda Levin's good offices, to use him, to harness him, to do that stuff. So I wanted to get back where I was holding. So I come to Eretz Yisrael. I put up 8 different settler. It cost me $1,600. I had the whole place, the Fruma Charedim kochen. Right. There's big pressure. Why is that? Why is the Badatz keeping quiet? Why are the Kanoim keeping quiet? I went to the Knesset. Did I go to Tegel? Did I go to Shas? Did I go to Mizrahi? What do you think, I'm nuts? They're not going to help. Who did you go to? I knocked on the door of Ahmad Tibi. the Arab Grobian Chave Knesset. When they opened the door, Ahmad Tibi had a big fat cigar, and his 2 feet were planted clearly facing me on the desk. That was the Shalom Aleichem. I said to him, Kivod HaChave Knesset. Chanifel Rishon. אני הגעתי פה לבקש מכבודו לעזור לנו ללחום נגד מצעד הגאווה שזה לא טוב לא לילדינו הנוער שלנו ולא להנוער שלכם. אז אני צריך את העזרה שלכם ואת כל חברי כנסת הערבים. He looks at me. He says, ראש העיר קבע היה בקשר עימי, אבל אני לא הכתובת. מי הכתובת? The head of the Islamic movement, the Chave Knesset, is the most extreme. I can't remember his name for a minute, it'll come to me, also a senior moment. So he said, Tidaber imo. So I said, Uma im hu lo yaseh? Mashu, as Tarzoli. So Toda Rabbi. I went around the Knesset looking for this guy. I couldn't find him. Finally, I went home. Sheikh, is it Sheikh? I went home in a car. My phone rings. My cell phone rings. Rabbi Levin, po medaber Barzilai. Barzilai is an assistant who I met on the plane coming here again. He's coming from America to here. He's an assistant to Eli Yishai in Shas. Barzilai. He tells me, Hine kvod ha-sheikh ala telephone. He hands me the phone, and he had the sheikh. He found him for me. Kvod harav, ma ani yochel lasot bishvilcha. Kvod ha-sheikh, ani rotze lifkosh imcha, vehekdem ha'efsheri, ledaber al ha'inyan shel ha'mitzad, ha'tuma, שזה לא טוב לנו ולנו. בסדר, ביום שני תבוא למשרד שלי, בשעה 4, isn't that? I came to him, he took notes and everything else, and he promised me he's going to get me Arabic signatures from Chave Knesset against the mitzvah. The second thing I did I go to Degel, Agudah, Mizrahi, Chas v'Chalila. On the floor of the lobby, me and my friend, Ephraim Holzberg from the Rova, we met. They used to have the Gimel party. The Gimel party, they had 8 seats. They were senior citizens. Their second in command, their first in command was the guy who made tzaras for, the spy master who made tzaras for Pollard. I forget his name, that old, Rafi Eitan. And the next guy was a guy named Moshe Sharoni, who was a Tzavilda V'Tachaya. So we meet Sharoni on the floor of the lobby of the Knesset. And it took 3 minutes. We told him what's going on. He started screaming, Lo maspik, zeim tzrich lasot et ze b'Yerushalayim. Ani achton lecho kol asiyah shelanu. I'll get you 8 signatures. He got everyone except for that oisvav low life Rafi Eitan. So I now had a few signatures from the Arabs. I had from Rafi Eitan. What did I do next? Okay, now I'm running out of stuff to do. It's time to go to Mizrahi. I went to Yitzchak Levi, who's no longer in the Knesset. When I told Yitzchak Levi what's going on, he says, I'm going to help you, I'm going to this, I told him I want a press conference and this and that. I had all kinds of ideas. What he did was, he decided this is a good issue, so he paid a woman named Minna something, Minna Penton, who was one of the top pollsters in the country. He paid her $2,000 or $2,500, and she did a poll that showed that Yerushalaim, 70 or more % of people are against this mitzvah tumah. Around 90% of the Arabs and 60-something % of the Jews. There was a statistic for the religious Jews also, whatever. And he started to make lekach with this. He started to have press conference, TV, this, that. That was moving. I then went to some of the other Mizrahi guys, got them a little bit on board. Listen carefully. I am now sitting in the miznon of the Knesset, the dining hall. Eli Yishai, it's 8 o'clock at night, I'm sitting with Holzberg, my friend Ephraim Holzberg. This is Tzaddik. Who introduced me to Ephraim Holzberg? I was speaking on the phone from America with Moshe Halberstam, Zecher Tzaddik Levracha, and when he heard who I am and what I do, he said, you must come to Eretz Yisrael to work on this parade. Nobody here, everybody's sleeping, nobody's doing anything. That was how I came to Eretz Yisrael for that. And I was introduced to Holzberg, who called Ephraim, he called Ephraim Holzberg the real Neturi Karta. He's the Shomer of Yerushalaim. So we're sitting in the Miznon, and Eli Yishai comes over, and he says to me, Kama chatimot ata mitkonen lekabel? How many signatures are you going to get? I had small hasagas. I said, Revi'ah shel HaKnesset, 30. He says, Atem osim avodat tova, od ani avi lachem 61 chatimot. You hear what he's going to double? He's going to get me 61 signatures. He calls up in front of me a Chav Knesset, he gives him the assignment, and ultimately, they got 61 signatures. When I went to Shimon Peres, I buttonholed him in the Knesset, right outside where it was known. I started to talk to him, isn't it? He lifts up his hands, he goes, I don't understand. I just don't know what you're talking about. And he walks away. Because what does he have to answer to me for? And then he was running for president, so Eli Yishai and Rav Avadia told him, if you want to get our support for president, you have to come to Rav Avadia's house and you have to publicly sign on this thing against it. So again, who got the Knesset going with the signatures and with this whole tumult? No, wait. So Eli Yishai took us in. Time one, listen carefully, he took me in with Holzberg to Rav Avadia early on after Pesach when I first arrived. And I talked to Rav Avadia for a few minutes and I asked him help, and he was non-committal and nothing happened. Now, he brought me the second time in the middle of this summer. He takes me to Rav Avadia with Holzberg, Rav, and he says like this, Elu hashnei tzadikim osim harbe yoter mimenu, or whatever they say, from us, again to fight this mitzad. So Rav Avadia, when he likes somebody, I don't know if you know, he pulls his ear and he smacks him in the face. The rabbi pulled my ear so much I was sure it was coming off, and he smacked my face so much I'm zichra I'm going to be in Olam Haba. So Rav Avadia asked, or something like that, either I asked him for two things. He should speak on the radio about it, on his radio program. And secondly, I told him they're looking to make a pshara, and they've been speaking. I told him when it was Chaim Ramon, who was later in a scandal. Chaim Ramon was then some kind of a minister, and he was telling Eli Yishai, let's make it outside Yerushalaim in Tel Aviv or something, to pray, compromise. I said, Hem rotzim lasot pshara. And he vakesh mikvod harav shelo yeh pshara. Eize pshara, he turns to Eli Yishai, pshara, lo yeh shum pshara. You understand? I'm just showing you what goes on. You understand? Now, in those times when I was running around the Knesset halls trying to get help, so one of the people I spoke to is a minister in Shas or something, or was a minister, and his name might have been Cohen. I'm not sure. It might be Cohen. I can't remember. But listen, I'm running after him like a zonov, and I'm fat and he's a skinny guy, and I'm panting and I'm running after him saying, maybe you could do this, maybe you could do that. And he can't stand me. He's like nimbus from me. He wants to get rid of me. Listen. So finally he reaches his office. So he goes like this. Yalla, la avodah. Like, now we have to do real work. You understand? We have to get some shekels from the government, a little scandal, a little this, a little that. Levin's talking about Kvoit Shemayim against the gay pride. That's shtusim. Now la avodah. You understand? See, he basically was making asher yotzar in my face. Fine. So he had an ozer there who wore a bukhar and yarmulke. So I spoke to he left. I spoke to Rosa. I said, "Ata yodea, ani chayev latet yasher koach gadol lahabos shelcha." זה מה זה? אז אני אסביר לך. אחרי 110 שנה, אני אהיה בשור תחתית. ואח הזמן, כמה חברי כנסת יגיע למעלה לדין וחשבון. והקדוש ברוך הוא ישאל לחברי כנסת, עשיתם משהו לכבודי נגד המצעד הטומאה ופלטירן של מלך? הם יגידו, בוודאי, עשינו, חתמנו, הפגענו, פשענו, בלבד, So הקדוש ברוך הוא יגיד, מי יוכל להגיד עדות? לדעת את האמת. צריכים עד. השמן הלווין הזה, תעלה אותו, תעלה אותו. אז יהודה, מה הוא עשה? אני אהיה כל כך עסוק להגיד עדות על מה שחברי כנסת עשו, אני לא אהיה הרבה זמן בגהנם. אז יש לי כוח גדול לכל הבוס שלך וכל חברי כנסת. Understand? I was once running after Menachem Porush. I said to him, ihr habt gemacht der gewaltige Kiddush Hashem mit der Pro Yotzeri, ihr mit Uri Ariel von der Mizrachi, ihr hat sich ausgespreit auf dem Ritzpah bei dem Mitzad und es ist gewesen in Papieren, also ihr habt gemacht im Mechot, es hat genommen euch eine Minute, die Polizei hat euch weggenommen mit Kavod und es ist gewesen auch viel in einer New York Newspaper. Für was könnt ihr nicht mehr Spiel sein, als der ganze Siyah von der Charedi und der Datim, Schloshim Anashim, Yasu etze, mit der Uri Lopliansky, der Grobjani, der Yerushalaim, mit der Chavrei Knesset, with the Shlomi Yatis, who's now on the Rova, with all the rest of these guys who did squat, zero, nothing. Es kann sein, Achidish Hashem, oim v'noira, oi 50, 60, und im Meilis wird kommen Rabboni mit. Es kann sein, ein paar 100 wird machen das, und sie wird klangen in der ganzen Welt. You understand what I said? I suggested to him, they can make, how much would it cost? Not $1. Would it be Kvod Shemayim? Yes. Did Gandhi do this? Non-violent protest? Yes. Did you yourself, Porush, do it once? Yes. Porush looks at me. Ihr ist schon geendigt? You finished already? That was Porush. Wait. So Eli Yishai already got to a stage that he was getting signatures. He was embarrassed. I was doing the work and he's the Sgan Rosh Hashanah. We're almost finished. There's a lot more. That's why we have to do Motzei Shabbos. A lot more stories. I won't finish at Motzei Shabbos. And by the way, I just extended my ticket. I was supposed to leave Monday. I just extended my ticket tonight with my travel agent. I'm going to be here through at least part of Hanukkah, a good part of Hanukkah. So maybe there'll be some more stories, bedtime stories. Rabbi Sai, now I was ready for Degel HaTorah. What's the other one? Agudah Yisrael. Yeah, I was now ready for them. They were avoiding me like the plague. Like the plague. They wouldn't go with me. I went over to Rabbi Avigdor Miller Hashalom and I asked him about laying down on the Knesset. He gave me such a look. Laying down on the floor. He gave me such a look. I'm asking him to lay down on the floor for Kvod Shemayim. No, the Shchayrim could do it for civil rights, and Gandhi in India could do it, and everybody could do it and lay down against nuclear arms. But Kvod Shemayim and Baltir and Shel Melech, you can't do it. And why did Rabbi Porush do it once? Remember, I don't know. He was Zocher one time to make a Kiddush Hashem. So listen, now at the very bloody end, the Agudah and Degel were forced into meeting me in their conference room, and all 6 or 7 or 5 or how many they were all around the table. All the Kluger Chachamim. You hear? I don't know if it was the Erloya Rav that said that they should have the meeting, or that they just were embarrassed already not to have the meeting. By the way, before I go on, I want to answer how many Gedolim I have from Eretz Yisrael. Rav Michal of Kovitz signed for me, Rav Shmuel Orbach signed for me. I have a wonderful story about that. The late great, what's his name, the Rav Harashi was nifted recently, the Sephardi Rav Harashi, Rav Eliyahu signed for me, Rav Nevinsel signed for me, the Chasna Devei Nesir, Rav Israel Orbach signed for me, Rav Ben Zion Mutzafi signed for me, okay? Rav Shiner signed for me, the Erloya Rav signed for me. I just want to say, in case you want to know, playing Gedolim cards, so I have all these signatures.
In America, we don't have Moshe Feinstein anymore, we don't have Demonstrated Rabbi anymore, we don't have
Right,
Miller anymore.
you got it.
So who can we trust?
I know, you asked them, wait a second. No, this is very wrong of you. You guys still don't have the hashkafa.
Even BMG still.
Who's alive today?
1 second, you don't have the hashkafa. Listen to me. There's a pasuk. And the pasuk says, Ki hashoichet yavor einei chachamim.
forms of shaykhut also.
What?
Money
There's
is
many different forms of shaykhut.
money's
Okay,
the biggest thing. Money that's B&G said both
There was a
Christie
man-
in
There's a
So you think not
it was all money. It was all about
there was
money.
a man.
It was
Listen,
all money.
Can I tell you a Maisa? Can I tell you?
Yeah. I don't remember
Can I-
that. That's what it is.
Can I tell you? Can I tell you a Maisa? I tell you a Maisa. I ran for mayor of New York, as I mentioned, in '85. Hatch was outraged. An Orthodox Jewish Haimi is going off the reservation to run against me. I'm going to show the world that the Orthodox Jews do not pay any attention to that guy Levin, and they're with me. So what did he do? He called up Bobov, and he said, you're having a Chanukah Sabayis for your new building on Sunday before election. You're making the street named Bobov Promenade. You have the multi-millionaire Marcos Katz coming from Mexico. I will come down and do something in honor of the occasion. The mayor of New York. So it was announced. The Kasha Varov sent his kids, Eineklach and some of his supporters, to be Moicha. The Sklerner Rebbe called up the Baba Varov, Yibad L'chaim, and asked him if he could cancel the thing, which of course wasn't shaykh the last minute. The Baba Rebbe was very nervous. I went into somebody called the Voidislav Rav, who was one of the top people on the Saktas Rabbanim. And I told him as follows. I always wondered why such a Talmud Chacham and a Choshev like the Voidislav Rav does not have a moisid, a yeshiva, or some kind of moisid. Now I know why. If you would have a moisid, you would have to play footsie with Ed the Fegel Akach. And you would have to give cover to an oisvarf. And you don't want to do that. He was so happy. He was so happy. He was come out dancing with Simcha. By the way, when I told Rav Dunn about the sandwich of Amalek, Rav Dunn was like this. He was also very, very happy with the shot, even though he couldn't talk yet. The Voidislav Rav might have also called up Rav Avigdor, the Baba. In the book called Politics, the second book of Meir Koch, he writes about me running against him. There's a few pages, and he writes about this protest in Bobov. We said we're excommunicating, we're putting him in Chayim. It was in all the newspapers. So the next day, on the front page of the New York Times, there was a picture of Ed Koch drinking l'chaim with a smiling Baba Rebbe. And in the Post, there was an article, Friends of Rabbi Levin excommunicate Koch. We held the excommunicate. He's muchram, he's chayim. And every 20 minutes on INS on Sunday was playing. So Ed Koch says, oh, I'm excommunicated. How nice. The last one that happened to was Spinoza in the 16th century. I'm in very good company. He's a smart guy, you know, but this and that. But I'm just telling you, so who made the Kiddush Hashem? You judge for yourself. Was it a Kiddush Hashem to drink l'chaim with this low-like scum of the earth who was one of the first to make the gay gezeros that we suffer from now? Now, the answer is Shochad Yavor Einei Chacham. The reason that Rabbbi Avigdor Miller, or the Kasha V'Rav, or the Debretziner Rav, or others were in part were able to see this clearly was because they were not Meshuchad. Getting back to the story with Joe Lieberman, where Rav Elias Svei said, I wasn't informed it was a mistake. Rabbi Moshe Marashera, when confronted, had to say it was a mistake. I gave out 700 flyers to everybody going into that. On one page was Rav Moshe's letter. On another page was a letter signed by Goyim and Jews by an organization I had called the Interreligious Family Defense Coalition, saying, how you talking? What's going on here? As Rav Aaron Schechter walked in, we gave him a thing. Rav Chaim Epstein, my Rebbe, walked in, we gave him a thing. The Matistov from Rav Metzger, the Torah, we gave him a letter. Now let me tell you what happened. Joe Lieberman pulled up to the Sheraton Hotel. He pulled up in a Cadillac with his wife Hadassah. This was like in the year 1999 or so. There was cell phones already. They had called ahead and told Joe Lieberman. The agudah guy was standing next to him. He was so nervous. Maybe Levin's going to beat him up. He's going to spit on him. He's going to scream on him. He's going to ruin a whole relationship with Joe Lieberman. Say it and so Joe. Joe Lieberman and Hadassah get out of the car. I'm standing by the car. I shake his hand. Senator Lieberman, congratulations. My name is Yehuda Levin. This is my son David. This is my son Yossi. I want to give you congratulations for receiving the humanitarian award. Thank you very much. He says, but I want to ask you a question. You're a Torah-critical Orthodox Jew. Senator Lieberman, partial birth abortion and national gay rights legislation, how could you? Right?
You're asking an excellent question. We really should sit down and discuss this. You call my office, we'll make time. This requires a serious discussion. I said, Senator, until that discussion takes place, meanwhile, the Orthodox world, the Gentiles are thinking that we can honor and support somebody who supports these issues. I'm here today with my son David, my son Yossi, and others of all faiths to say we're against this. We're opposed to this, no matter what. Rabbi, you're doing the right thing. Wait. Not the end of the story yet. Lieberman goes into the, and he makes a speech. He gets a award. Listen carefully. We are now between Pesach and Shavuos in Sfiras HaOmer. Sfiras HaOmer is to show that Yetzias Mitzrayim was not an end-all. What was an end-all was that we received the Torah on Shavuos. We're now hurtling towards that. I'm happy to announce that today in America we don't have to compromise on our Torah principles. Look at me. You could be a proud Orthodox Jew in one of the highest positions of the land. That's his Musishmus. In front of the Moses Gedolim Torah, the Rabbonim, the Askanim. Did anyone get up and say, I don't know if you know this Gemara, the rabbis, they said, Agrippus, when he was crying that he, post Hanukkah, he's possible to be a melech. He felt bad, he couldn't really sit there. Achinu, Ata Agrippus, Achinu, all the Chanfanim, you're a brother, don't feel bad, we love you, Agrippus. Did one rabbi get up and say, who are you saying this baloney to? You're an Orthodox Chil Hashem, Mr. Liebman. We love you. We respect you for all the things, the wonderful things you do, like helping Jonathan Pollard. We respect you for all the gelt and shkolim you get for us. But with all due respect, partial birth, abortion, this we must plead with you, Barabbim, that while we honor you, we beg you to remove your sponsorship from this. Did anybody do it? No. In Pin Lipshitz's Yated, when they wrote up all the glowing things with all the pictures of all the other pinheads standing next to this Oisvarf and taking pictures. Did he tell the truth? No. That's why Yated is such a wonderful hashkafic newspaper. But recently they had an article, front page. I did.
Right then? You had that right then?
No, wait a second. You want to hear the story? Outside I gave 700 things out. Wait! I sent in a man. I sent in a guy, and Rabbi Sher recognized him, and walked over to Michael Barbro and said to him, Mr. Barbro, I am enjoining you. Do not scream or make any disturbance, or I have to have you removed now. Do I have you? Rabbi Shera himself, do I have your word, Michael? So he had to give his word. I'm telling you. Listen, and I want you to know that when Mayor Koch declared his last time for mayor, when Mayor Koch declared his last time for mayor, it was a front page story in the New York Post. My friend Michael Barbro and a Gentile Paul Morrissey, a friend of mine, went in, and Koch had some kind of, he made something, yeah, he ran over, pulled the paper out of his hands and ripped it up in front of all the media. I'm serious. We've made powerful machayas. You want to know what machazah I made? When Mario Cuomo came down in 1982, he was running for governor of New York for the first time. The Haimis closed off 13th Avenue. Chalamoy Sukkis. Brooklyn Borough President was there, Martin Golden. Stephen Solos, who I would run against 2 years later, was their congressman. Senator Moynihan and his wife were there. Wait. Gets better. There were a few other public officials. Listen. We stood outside Kojo Borough Park. As each rabbi came down from the Mossad, we handed them pictures of Cuomo's promise to make these schmutzige gezeres. You hear? When Mario Cuomo was the last person to come out, we're ending in 3 minutes and we'll take questions whoever wants to stay. Mario Cuomo was the last person to come out. I handed Mario Cuomo the thing for the Village Voice with Liz Abzug, the congresswoman whose daughter is a lesbian, Liz Abzug, promising to make Mishkav Zocha laws if he becomes governor. I handed it to him. And he had just come from the Beis Yaakov principle and the Bobiv and Satma and all of them, Chanfonim, kissing him in a covered area.
And he was like this. Because nobody kisses up like the frum Jews. Nobody, not the Puerto Ricans, not the Mexicans, not the blacks, not the Italians, not the Irish. Nobody does it. It's this like sachnifu that the Rabbbi Avigdor Miller talks about. So he's like this, and he expects, I'm another sycophant, I'm another choynef. I hand him this. I say, talk to us about this. What's this, Mario? He looks at it. He sees what it is. He's a big balkas. He crumbles it and throws it, and he walks up to the stage. Everybody's quiet. Everybody's still. In shul they'll talk, but here, everybody's quiet. Get here, pin drop. And Rabbi Schmidman, all of a sudden, the head of Projo, gets up. Schmidman starts to speak. I have 7 people in the crowd, including an elderly Galach, and they have signs. Cuomo's for the homos and the birds. They have a sign like that about Patrick Moynihan also. You hear? Listen. He starts to speak, Rabbi Schmidman. I start to scream. Tell us about gay rights. Tell us about gay rights. And everybody's quiet. So when Schmidman's talking to the microphone, I'm talking, but you can hear me loud. Shah, shah. Well, what's the matter? It's Kriyas Torah. I keep on going. And my guys pick up their signs, and one of them is underneath the thing, and right underneath the bima. And Matilda Cuomo is there, and it's a Galach. And the Galach starts telling Catholic Matilda, how could your husband do this and be pro-abortion? His yonis is gewaltig. Listen. So after they say Shah, it's not working. So Schmidman can't continue. And Mario says, okay, you don't have to introduce me, I'll speak. So he gets up, and he's talking to me, the crowd, yeah? He says, my friend, you believe in freedom of speech? I said, sure I do. Tell us about gay rights. He said, would you believe in giving a person a chance to speak? I said, yes, but tell us about gay rights. Just like that. He says, I want to make you a deal. You let me speak, I promise I will tell you about gay rights. I said, sir, you have 3 minutes. He starts to talk, and he's not talking about gay rights. I says, Mario, tell us about gay rights. People start to jump on me physically. They ripped my sign. I stood there. My guys, I'm serious. Listen to me carefully. I'll show you the documents. I will show you the documents. Moynihan's wife was his campaign manager. She said, "Look, get out of here. We don't need this publicity with that sign about the Moynihan, the homos." Martin Golden left. Stephen Solos left. You understand? Nobody wants to be. It's not a photo op anymore. Mario stopped talking in the middle. I have the newspaper articles titled Cuomo's Day Marred in Brooklyn. New York Times, Newsday, for sure, maybe the Daily News. You hear? Kiddush Hashem. It said 12, they exaggerate, 12 rabbis with long black coats. None of us, I don't think, had black coats. Interrupted his day, and this and that, da. There's a postscript to that story with Mario Cuomo, because you're talking about the protest. Listen. It was Brooklyn Bridge Day in New York, the 100th anniversary of Brooklyn Bridge. Listen to what I did. I took 20 people, men, women, black, white, Puerto Rican, Jewish, Catholic, evangelical. We marched into the World Trade Center building that no longer exists, into the governor's office. We walked right past the guard. He saw distinguished people, clergy. Can I help you? Yes, we have an appointment with the governor. Shortly, can you show us where the conference room is? He showed us the conference room, we sat down. 10 to 9 o'clock, yeah? Half an hour goes by, the governor's secretary, who happened to be a Shomer Shabbos, I think, Ellen Konovitz, walks into the room. Ladies and gentlemen, can I help you? Sure, we want to see the governor. Do you have an appointment? Not really, but it's very important. We have to see him today. But he's at the Brooklyn Bridge Centennial. That's okay. We can stay here a whole day. She didn't know how to eat it. But she's get the heck out of here. She kick out all the rabbis, the clergy, the law firm. Problem. Levin's and Al Sharpton. So what happens? Half an hour goes by. Cuomo had a governor. The Cuomo had a rabbi, his favorite rabbi from Jamaica Estates, where Cuomo lived. His name was Mashowitz. He's the son of one of the Iluyim, either the Meitzati Iloy or somebody. Big Litvish Goyim. He was the son of a conservative rabbi. And he still spoke Litvish English. As a kid. So he walks into the room and he sees me, he says, "Was tut sich dort? Achil Hashem, was tut ihr?" Oh, Rav Mashowitz, Daigen dit wegen Chil Hashem. Olai chatos chabini. Chil Hashem ahin, Chil Hashem aher. We will sich treffen mit dem Governor. Aber wir gucken dich doch. Wir haben eine ganze Tag Zeit, Tage nicht. Aber was denn? Bis wir haben eine Haftoche. Until we have promised that we have a meeting with the governor, we are not leaving. Call the police. So they promised us you're going to have a meeting with the governor. Listen carefully. They won't give us a meeting. They thought they would ignore us. So I came down with 15 people. This time they wouldn't let us get into the conference room. We came down 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Now there's always media in the governor's offices. So we started saying, when are we going to have the meeting with the governor? What's going on here? You lied to us? What kind of business is this, right? Cuomo was very shrewd. It's a big office. He quickly calls a press conference in the back room of the office. They shouldn't hear us screaming, to speak about Shoreham nuclear plant and his plans, because he doesn't want them to hear us. But he sees we're serious now. He starts to get a little nervous. Listen to this. It's now Tisha B'Av. Tisha B'Av by night, Mario Cuomo is making his first appearance on the Larry King radio program before he went on TV. It was Tisha B'Av by night, so I tell Michael Macaluso from Rochester, you call up and ask him on national radio when is he keeping the appointment with the rabbis and the priests. He calls up, they say, what do you want to talk about? The rabbis, the priests, the gays. Boom. The screen is not interested in that. You understand? It was in the early 80s, but they were liberal. He dials again. Listen to this. Siyata D'Shmaya, Tisha B'Av by night. And the screener presses the wrong key. And instead of putting on somebody else, he puts on Michael Macaluso, who just dialed in right away afterwards. He says, hello. Larry King says, hello, you're on the air. He says, hello, I'm Michael Macaluso from Rochester. I'd like to ask the governor, you promised the rabbis and the priests, you promised them 4 months ago a meeting about your plans to make homosexual legislation and executive orders. Are you going to keep your word, Mario? So this is juicy. So Larry King, again, the season of dumb, he says, yeah, Mr. Governor, you're going to keep your word. See, he's on national radio. He says, yes, we plan to have that meeting very soon. Within 2 weeks, we had the meeting. We had 60 people there. Listen to this. The first one, he sits on a big bima. Well, this is the last story. He sits on a big bima, and Galach is speaking, Rabbi is speaking. After around 5 people, I speak. Listen to this. I get up to speak, and he's knocking. He's a gewaltige debater. He's knocking everybody, twisting everybody around. Everybody's scared of him. He's the governor of New York. So I get up. He says to me, before I speak, he says, oh, Rabbi Levin, how are you? He says, tell me, I just signed the get law a few weeks ago. Where were you at the get law signing? You weren't there. You understand what he's doing, Rabbi Sai? What's he doing? Does anybody here know what he just did? Does anybody understand what the governor just did? What? No. What? He's telling me, how do you, Jaime, have the chutzpah to come at me for this? I just gave your community theirs. I gave them the get law. Shut up, what are you doing here? That's what he's saying to me. So I said to him, I was all of 28 years old. I said to him, Mr. Governor, I'm honored you still remember my name. You understand, he's remembering from three-quarters of a year ago that I stopped him from speaking. He remembered. And I said, as for the get law, I'm sure I speak on behalf of the entire Orthodox Jewish community in thanking you for signing this legislation. You know that for millennia, Mr. Governor, we had tremendous family values in a cohesive family unit, and we had no need for get laws. Now with the breakdown of the family societally from many different causes, we have various problems that have caused divorce. So Mr. Governor, thank you for the get law. That's a symptom. Now we're here to discuss the core issues of breaking down the family by what you're planning to do, issue an executive order for gay rights. I mamish the guy gulped. He was like, you heard, like a swallow? I said, furthermore, Mr. Governor, may I be allowed to say one more thing? Go ahead. Just in the Bible, it states that the world's greatest debater was not the good guy. He was not the good guy. It was the bad guy. The Torah tells us that Jacob was somebody, a rabbi who sat in the tents and studied. He wasn't such a great debater. And Esau was glib of tongue and he was a great debater. Mr. Governor, you may win all the debates, but that doesn't make you right, sir. We're right. This shouldn't be done. And I walked away. With me, he didn't shepherd because he knows I'm a madman already. Listen, he continued to shepherd. Rabbi Tendler Sr. was there, talked to him with Big Derech Eretz. There was a Father William Smith there, who was a Dr. Kanoi, Catholic priest. After a while, somebody in the back, an old Irish Catholic priest, started to mutter that Andrew Cuomo, who today is governor, maybe he's gay, and that's why Mario is doing this. Cuomo heard this from the front of the room. He's a kaisen like you wouldn't believe. What did you say? And the Galach got scared. You started screaming and yelling. You hear? Listen. I stood up, and I walked halfway up right to the place where the speakers were, halfway away from me. I pointed my finger at him. I said, Mr. Governor, may I remind you, sir, you are a servant of the people. You have been debating, degrading, and insulting religious leaders for the past 2 hours. Mr. Governor, I demand you stop this. Just like that. He stood up in a kas, and he said, I've had enough, and he stumped out of the room. His own people, everybody was scared stiff. Where is the Kaiser? I want to tell you a quick mice about him. When he was running for mayor, he got out of a car. And he saw Mike Long, who was opposing, who was today the head of the Conservative Party. He got out of the car, ran over, grabbed him by the shirt, and started to have fisticuffs and rolled around on the ground with him. That's what kind of a kaisen this guy is.
You get arrested?
What?
You get arrested?
No, because he had the upper hand. He was the Democrat knocker, and Long was like this. So 1 second. So what happened was, we walked. The meeting was over. The meeting was over. This is the last story. The meeting was over. We walked outside. The press was not allowed by Cuomo into the room. They were all outside. So the press started to say, I'm telling you who the press was. It was Jane Tillman Irving, who used to be on CBS Radio. And it's a woman who used to be for the Daily News. She's now on channel something TV. Marsha Kramer. And a few others. Who's the spokesman? Who put this together? Who's this? Everybody was inexperienced and afraid to speak. So finally, Reverend Roger Fulton said, Rabbi Levin. They said, that's a kid. He's the youngest guy here. No, but he's the one who did it. He put it together. He's the spokesman. So they came over to me and I said, the governor has been playing mental gymnastics and ping pong with the religious leaders for 2 hours. He's been insulting us and we demand that he be against this. This is in all the newspapers and everything else. The story with Cuomo goes on. There were 2 or 3 more meetings. There were all kinds of exciting things happening. I have to stop now because I don't think it's fit to the other. If anybody does want to stay and ask questions, I'm happy to stay for another 15, 20 minutes to ask questions.
What can we do about it?
What?
I don't understand how you answer the original question.
What's the original question, sir?
If you're matching the Gedolim and the agreement, we're all in us,
right.
Then you should try to
So how did I answer the question? I answered the... So what? Come on, right. So 1 second. First of all, I'm telling you that there is shaykhad. I'm telling you that there's shaykhad. Second of all, I'm showing you from Rav Shach and from others that not every gadol knows every sugya. Young man, where is he? Do you understand the answer? I'm telling you clearly. Could I ask you? Sir, I'm telling you that it's a falsehood to think that every gadol knows every issue and area. It's shtusim, it's amaratzis, it's tipshus.
I didn't say that, that someone can't be wrong. I didn't say
not that they can't be wrong, that they don't even know the sugya. I'm telling you, I spoke.
I never said that. Like my friend.
Yeah.
I said, but to force someone to go and say Gedolim Torah, which does have das Torah, whatever das he has is das Torah.
Yeah.
And like that, you go throw him away and say. What does that mean? Throw him away. That say shaykhad on this Indian, you should try to understand fully to what he's saying. Rabbi Levin didn't even answer. What he said, what he meant, I don't know. But you go back and try to understand. The same way someone, a producer, try to understand the Rabbis together. Don't say, I don't know what the Rabbis says, because my seichel says it's not good kasha, so I throw it away. No, you try to understand it.
I want to tell you clearly, and I say this with all respect to you. This is Baba Maisis. Listen to me, and it has no shaykhis to any Messiah in Klal Yisrael. No, I'm going to prove it to you now.
Nothing says in everyone like he is. Oh, you can't be punching everyone. Punch everyone.
Because I asked you who the law today is back.
Wait a second. Please, whatever it is, please, I need these originals, so don't take it. Listen, there's a Brisker Rov that Miller wrote an exhaustive 3-volume thing on the Brisker Rov. In something like the 2nd volume, around 50 or 60 pages in, there's the whole thing about Giyas Bonus. There's a whole thing about Giyas Bonus. They come and they tell the Brisker Rov, if you don't allow Giyas Bonus or some sort of Sherut Lomi, they're going to close down the yeshivas
and there will be no leave at because the Bachurim will be in the army. The Brisker Rav answered as follows. We don't have, Klal Yisrael will exist without yeshivas. That's what he said. We don't have an obligation to see for yeshivas. What Klal Yisrael has, that's up to the Rebbeinu Shalom. But what we have an obligation for is the moral decency of our daughters, etc. That we have an achrayas. And he based it on a Rambam, there's a whole lumdus there, etc. I'm just explaining to you. It's not a teeth thing.
It is.
No, it's not. You're making
basic knowledge and basic cheshbon. The Gedolim have a much bigger picture and not priority and not reality. They're above reality.
They are not. Excuse me.
They're above reality.
Okay, stop. You hear the question? You hear the question? The question is the Gedolim. I want to quote: the Gedolim are above reality. They get this das Torah, and automatically when they approach a thing, they have a.
They have a much. No. I want to say they have a bigger picture.
They have a much bigger picture than me, who's been in it 30 years. Okay, here's the story. Here's the story. No. Here's a good question. Here's the story. 5 years ago, I said this last time, but I'll say it again because you wouldn't hear other people. 5 years ago, I went to the house of Rev Israel Orbach, the Chasna G'vei Nesiya, at the end of where Rev Eliashiv was vacationing every year, Ben Azmanim, by his daughter Rev Leah Orbach, Alei Shalom. I went there because they need minyan for Mincha Ma'ariv, so you have a chance to get in. I davened Mincha with Rev Eliashiv. I learned something. When you daven in a small room, in a dining room, he's at the other end, you hear every word of davening, probably because he's hard of hearing. You hear everything religious, everything he says. It's very interesting. If he davened, there's downtime between Mincha and Ma'ariv. So the madman, you know the madman, his anacle with the wild eyes who pushes everybody around. You know the madman? Yeah. The madman would be selling, he's a nice guy, excuse me if I'm too sharp, he would be selling smoked fish and Rachov Me'esharim if his grandfather wasn't Rev Eliashiv. So the madman is starting to push everybody out. I go over to Rabbi Afrati, and I say to him, Shalom Aleichem, ich bin ein Netzig, I'm a representative of whatever I told him, 800 rabbis, 1,000 rabbis, between agudah Rabbanim, Igor Rabbanim. Can I ask you a question? He says, yeah. I asked him your question, the Gedolim question, the Mishpacha magazine question, the Baki Hila question. Via Zoy, I'll say it in English, how does Rev Eliashiv know how to be mishtayach to the Inyan of the Mitzat HaGaiva? Would you say Rev Eliashiv is the Gadol Hador? Yeah. Okay, so I went to the, would you say Efrati is his main name?
I don't know, but that's okay. I guess, yeah.
So I went to the main shamas of the Gadol Hador, and I asked you a question. Very, very derech herzig. How does Rev Eliashiv know how to relate and what action to take about the Mitzat HaGaiva, the gay march in Jerusalem? I said to him, does it come to him through the radar, through the himmel, that he has Siyata Dishmai because he's a Faisik Hador? I asked him this. I said this to him with big derech heretz. 1 second. I asked him this. I said, or does he have to know the facts? I started off this thing with the fact about the gay rights with the phone. They have an underground schmutz thing there, right? So I told him this. He was horrified. He didn't know. I told him a second thing, which I forget. I said, so ich habe euch schon gesagt, am Minute 2, I told you 2 things. Does Rev Eliashiv know this? And does he factor this in, the progress the movement is making and how it impacts on Charedim and Datiyim? When he makes his decision to ignore the prayer, to do something, does he know? I made it easy for him. I said, or do you have to give him this information in order for him to make a decision, because he doesn't get it from the atmosphere, from the Kastorah, from the radar or anything else? I asked him that, without any disrespect. He says, ich habe es gesagt. I hear what you're saying. I'm going to tell Rev Eliashiv, we're going to a chasna this evening, I'm going to tell him. And this was Thursday. Monday, you will have a meeting of 5 minutes. Be yechidus with Rev Eliashiv. This is the most anybody has. So I said to him, don't make shtick with me, because I'm leaving Tuesday. If you're going to give me the appointment, fine. Don't make shtick with me. Understand? Monday morning, I have a call, 9 o'clock in the morning. It's already on my answering machine. Das is short to Aisuf Adasa. That's the lady secretary who keeps the appointments. Harav lo magish tov hayom bitlu kol ha-pigishot. That night he said in the tzrif for 100 people or whatever a shir. Efrati never called me. He never tried to reschedule. He never tried anything. The next time I met Efrati was a year or so later. I was at a bris at Mincha time, and I came out of the bris, and Efrati was coming inside. I met him outside the strip. I told him, Efrati, ihr seid a Gangster, a Mafioso, a Shakran, und lasst nicht haben ein Meeting mit Rabbi Yeshiva, was ihr zugesagt, wegen dem Mitzad, und nehmt Achrayes für ganz klar Yisrael, was man macht, nicht kein Bechot. All your fault, and you're a gangster and a lowlife. I told him to his face, like I'm talking to you. See, he's so cute. He says, אתה רוצה פגישה עם Rabbi Yeshiva? תצלצל לדס. Isn't it cute? Oisov, we're talking about Kfayt Shemayim, and this is what the gangster Oisov says. Why? Because Lapliansky, the mayor, and they all work, and Efrati wants to be the Rav HaRashi of Yerushalaim. He now maneuvered his way into being the Rav HaRashi of the Rav of, what do you call it, that Azar here, wherever he's the Rav, right here he's the Rav, the local Rav. And now he wants Yerushalaim, that's his ultimate goal. So he wants to get the he has to be good with Lapliansky. Lapliansky doesn't want you to live near this place, near telling you Efrat. So I told him this, and then the Nahag, the driver called Chaim Cohen, comes out. And he sees that I'm talking chutzpah de Efrati. See, he says to me, I said, Raga, Ata sach hakol hanahag ser Rabbi Yashiv. Eich yesh lecha kesef livnot villa beramot. Ata yochel hazvir? He turned white. I said, Kama kesef Lapliansky mishalem lecha al what do you call it? On the payroll shel ha'iriya. Al ha'rishima shel ha'iriya. Because the story is that Chaim Cohen used to be against Lapliansky before he became mayor. Lapliansky was running for mayor, went over. He bribed Chaim Cohen, alleged, and he told him, when I get in, I'm going to give you a special taktiv. You'll be an advisor, you'll be this, you'll be that, you'll make nice money, and you'll be my ears inside Rabbi Yashiv. You hear the skunkerai that goes on here? This is Das Torah.
No, so again, so you're knocking with thing, and you just say because
I'm not knocking.
But again, you don't understand the other side. You don't know the other side. You have to know the other side. You've never seen the other side.
I'm not pushing everyone.
Showing that the information doesn't make it though.
I'm not pushing everyone.
Okay.
So that's enough.
How is that
enough? It's not enough.
Again,
You know, the
before
guys
you
are not getting it.
You're not knocking the door.
Okay.
You're not. You don't.
That's what we first again. So you can't say we have some sock, right? You cannot have some sock, right? Because you don't understand them. You cannot function because my das doesn't acknowledge it. They're above you. Their question is a lot greater than yours.
The people want to know. Excuse me. The question is,
they don't deal with
which
this issue.
Yeshiva
Rabbi Levin doesn't know the issue.
No, he doesn't partake in the issue.
Rabbi Levin doesn't know that there's a game.
Freely.
which
Did you hold of it?
who
No.
wants
Does
to
he ever
know?
get up and then talk about gay rights?
Maybe for a good reason. What are you, stupid?
Maybe for a good reason.
Yeah, they'll find you.
He claims you went over the room fighting and he said what he said.
And he doesn't understand it, so he knocks
He
you.
doesn't understand. Everyone fighting told him something. That's what he said. He's saying the word everyone finds.
He's just doing because Ron Collar said that the most important thing that we have to work on is kind of.
Please.
And you have to be Moshe, it's not going to work.
Don't. Do me a favor. You want to know who you could ask? Number one, you could ask with Chaim Epstein. Wait a second. You can ask Rabbi Rosenblum. You can ask Rabbi Rosenblum, who refuses to sit. Both of them refuse to sit. Both of them who wouldn't see. Go ask him. It doesn't have to back me up. Ask him on the issue. I don't need to back. This is a baby stupidity. I want to explain to you. This is a baby stupidity. I want to answer the first question. I'll tell you what is the stupidity. So with Chaim Epstein, I believe that if you go and you ask Rabbi Meir Hershkowitz, or you ask Rabbi Stanford, Rabbi Schistel, I believe, if you discuss the Indian, you present them with the facts, I believe that they would tell you they're from the Dor HaYoshen. I believe that they tell you. So I told you that until he got sick, there's Shmuel Feivelson 1,000,000%. So exactly how does this work? I've named you 6 or 7 Rosh Yeshiva. What?
Could you speak that name?
The answer is very simple. I've spoken with Rav Chaim Epstein. I've spoken with Rav Shmuel Miller. I've spoken with. I never asked them to back me, but if you want to go and ask, you don't understand. Wait, let
Let me get this backing garbage out of the way.
Why didn't?
No, it's a garbage. I want to get it out
You
of
have
the
a
way.
certain approach.
I want to get out of the way. Excuse me. Grow up. Excuse me.
Yeah.
1 second. Wait a second. Let me
Why can't I go do stuff?
Let me answer.
Every issue.
You can't.
Let me answer.
Even you are ridiculous. Just said he asked for Avigdor Miller.
Let me answer. Please, I'm begging you. I'm begging
That
you.
radio can be
Let
rising.
me answer the backing up question.
How do you know? I don't know. Watching these web.
A person goes to
They learn
Yerushalaim. How long does
You don't
it take?
understand why they're doing it.
How long does it take to get a good, by Rav Zalman Nehemiah Goldberg, let's say, a good smicha for Yeridei? Rabbi say, how long does it take? 2 years. Rabbi say, let's do better. A guy goes for 5 years to Rav Zalman Nehemiah Goldberg. Rav Zalman Nehemiah Goldberg says on him, he knows everything, my mahalach, everything that he